Welcome to episode 33 of Shane Talks, the Shane Talks Talkin' Turtles episode. This week, I'm having myself a pizza party. I got myself some nice Pizza Hut this week. A little simple pepperoni pizza to mow on while we're talking tonight. The Sun King beer I'm drinking this week, I'm drinking something light while I'm eating my pizza, but after I finish that up, for dessert, I'm going to be doing Sun King's Churrolicious. It is their pastry stout. They just released for Indiana Stout Day, which I believe was the first weekend of March. It was like 2 weeks ago. So Churrolicious is their pastry stout. It was brewed with a bunch of churros that were made in local bakeries here in Indianapolis. It's a nice, silky smooth, chocolatey, milky stout. I honestly don't get a whole lot of churro flavor from it. There's very slight cinnamon sugar taste to it. Not as much as I was hoping for, but still very delicious beer, but it does not pair well with pizza, so I'm going to just drink something light while I'm eating my pizza. So, tonight, I am joined with my typical co-host, Jason L. Mayer, is here in the Leonardo role for our talks tonight. I'm also joined by Brandon Yotter, who was on the episode 7 when we did 007. We ended up talking for 4 hours about James Bond that night and had to cut it into 2 episodes. I don't think we're going to go that long tonight, but we do have a lot of stuff to talk about. When we decided to do the Ninja Turtles episode, I knew that Brandon was somebody I wanted on here, so I'm glad he was able to make it. Of the franchises that Brandon and I have had the most in-depth conversations about while we were working, it was James Bond, Ninja Turtles, and then the X-Men we've talked about a lot also. So I'm really happy to have him on here. I know he's a huge fan of the Ninja Turtles and has a lot to contribute to this episode. Brandon, I know you're drinking a beer tonight. What are you drinking?
Yeah, I'm drinking the Nutter Cup chocolate peanut butter porter from Brewlink in Indiana.
Nice. I'm excited
really
about
good.
Brewlink since they just bought a place downtown. It's going to be a lot closer to me. I haven't tried any of their stuff yet just because of how far away from me they are. So I'm very excited about them buying a downtown place, which is obviously a lot closer to you too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love their flavored beers because they're actually flavored. You know,
Sure.
It's not just like if they have a blueberry beer, it doesn't just taste like a hint of blueberry with some blue food coloring. It's like this Nutter Cup tastes like roasted peanuts with a little bit of chocolate at the end. Like it's
Nice.
really good.
That sounds really good. Mayor, you drinking anything tonight?
Nope.
Cool. All right. So let's the new segment. Yotter, since you've been on here, about 2 weeks ago, Jason and I started a new segment. It's just called What'd You Watch This Week? Just if there's anything you watched this week. Well, for Jason and I, it's weekly since we talk usually every week. But is there anything you've watched recently that you can highly recommend or that you really enjoyed?
That I really enjoyed, I'll say the Dawn of the Dead remake I just rewatched. James
Cool.
Gunn written, Zack Snyder directed.
Sure.
I think it's really fun. One of the better of those remakes that they did in the aughts of horror movies.
I remember
really
liking
just
it a
one
lot, but I haven't
flaw
seen it for a long time. But I do remember. Isn't Sarah Polley in it?
Yeah.
Is that the one I'm thinking
I
of?
don't know.
Yeah, it's Sarah Polley.
Omar Epps.
Not Omar Epps. It's the
Mekhi
guy from
Phifer?
Yeah, Mekhi Phifer.
Yeah, Mekhi Phifer's in it.
Yeah. And James.
Yep. The guy from Modern Family.
Yeah.
That's really like
Fox Hanson.
Yeah.
Trevor, is that his name? Or
Maybe.
Tyler? Trevor.
Ty Burrell.
Ty Burrell. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I knew it was a T.
Yeah.
Something.
He plays that like snidey asshole really well.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Anything else?
Not that I'd recommend.
Okay. Mayor, you watch it? Oh, go ahead.
My controversial take is I watched WandaVision and thought it was just okay. I thought everybody was flipping their shit about it, and I thought it could have been a lot better. But
in a no spoiler talk, I will say I loved every episode of WandaVision more than the previous one, culminating with 8. I thought was the absolute best episode, and I was severely disappointed in the finale.
That's fair.
The stuff that was revealed in episode 8, I was on a high. I was like, oh my God, like this can only get better with the 9th episode. I watched the 9th one and I was like, I've got like 9 questions that you set up in this show that you never answered or even came close to answering. And I'm just like extremely disappointed. Like, obviously you can see the setup of where they're going to go next with her character, and I mean, obviously we know she's in Doctor Strange, but
Right.
just didn't care for the resolution of the show.
Yeah, I think they could have done a really good like little character study of like tragedy and loss and like her dealing with it, and it just kind of builds up to another superhero show.
Yeah, and I saw one of the people in charge of it when they were interviewed this week about it and whatnot. Their quote was, "The big bad of the show was always just grief," and I'm like, I get that, okay, but like, it just didn't give me what I wanted.
Yeah. Well, and I saw the showrunner, even like the week before the finale aired, was like, people are going to be disappointed with the finale.
Sure.
Like, I don't think they expected it to be as big as it ended up being.
Yeah. So like I said, building all the way up to episode 8, I really loved and enjoyed what they did with all the characters and how things were building up. I was just beyond disappointed with how they decided to resolve all the storylines. Yeah. So just disappointing. Mayor, did you watch anything this week?
I've hit a whole bunch of things this week.
Nice.
I watched Coming to America. Such a disappointment. It's not like how you make a rated R comedy that's got so much raunch and nudity and stuff, and then you water it all down to be PG-13, and then on top of that, I like it's very Me Too right now as well. And I'm just like, of course. He only has daughters with his wife. And he's got this bastard son that was from a one night stand in New York City. First time he was in New York. And then and then they allude to a lot of the jokes that were like raunchy in the first movie, but then they're just like they're just kind of hinting at it. And and at one point they even talk about they start talking about American cinema and how it's nothing but sequels to movies that don't need sequels and superhero movies. And it's like, or superhero or comic book movies. And I'm like, oh, wow, you're even digging on yourself. And it's not very good because your movie's not very good.
Well, that's really disappointing to hear.
Yeah. And I said something to my wife about PG-13 compared to R, and she goes, "Why would Eddie Murphy do anything but R?" And it's like, I mean, it literally was. It was like old Eddie has just completely gone away, and ever since he did like Dr. Dolittle and everything else, he's like, well, I'm gonna make a mostly family friendly kind of movie. But yeah. A horrible disappointment for me. What else did I watch? I watched Raya the Last Dragon.
Okay, what about that?
Which it's entertaining and fun, and it moved me into the spots that it was supposed to move me.
Good.
It felt like a regular, like it feels like a run of the mill Disney movie. Like Tuk Tuk is her little rolling like sidekick thing. And he's like super, super cute at the beginning, but then and then he's like supremely a side character near the end. But I mean, it works. It's fine. It's entertaining. You definitely get more world building in this than you did in some of the other recent movies with Disney. One of my issues that I was going to bring up while you guys were talking about WandaVision is like, Disney's just on this huge kick of nobody's really a bad guy anymore.
Yes.
Like everybody has an excuse for what they do. And it's like, even like they tried to humanize Thanos to a certain degree. And it's like, and don't get me wrong, like you can understand what Thanos is, but you should be feeling like he is an extreme evil. Yeah. Like we don't have that anymore. Darth Vader no longer exists as far as movies from Disney goes, because everybody has this, they're only doing this because of the fact that they're scared or they were raised that way or whatever. And it's just like, oh God, just stop. Just give us somebody who's just evil and pure evil. That's all I want.
Yeah. Even just in general, Darth Vader's been made sympathetic. Like,
totally.
From the prequels and everything. Like,
but like Elsa was the bad guy in the second Frozen movie essentially by accident. Like she doesn't even know she's the bad guy. Like it's stupid stuff, man. So that's my only kind of disappointment with Rhea was they gave you a bad guy-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much, but they give you a bad guy-ish. And then so then you had that. I watched Boss Level, which is Frank Grillo's movie, went direct to Hulu. Mel Gibson's in it. Naomi Watts is in it.
Oh yeah.
There's a surprise gunner in the movie who when he showed up I was like, oh, that's funny, like I really enjoy this. It's a complete Groundhog's Day meets John Wick comedy.
Oh, wow.
Like it's like it's almost like slapstick comedy. It's just really kind of funny and silly and ridiculous, and it's another movie that I wish I would have watched in an auditorium with a few friends so that I could actually enjoy it to a different level than I do at home sitting on my ass and with just a drink and, you know.
I don't know about you, but I was laughing out loud by myself when I watched it. And I absolutely really enjoyed the movie. I highly recommend it to people. Like it like you said, it's just, it's John Wick level violence with humor involved. And it's just, it's over the top ridiculous violence, and Frank Grillo is just extremely humorous throughout the whole film.
Well, and I've always really enjoyed him.
Sure.
And I don't know what it is about him as far as like, I don't know if it's a charismatic thing about him or what, but he's always enjoyable to watch in almost any role that he plays. Mm-hmm. I really wish that he would have been the Punisher instead of Crossbones, but John Barenthal is really good as the Punisher, and I have no problems with him now. But if they had not cast him as Crossbones, I definitely would have. And the fact that they killed Crossbones so fast, like that would have been. He's such a cool character, and could have played off a Cap really well. But they didn't do it, so whatever. Highly recommend that movie. Then what were the other two? I just watched Action Jackson for the first time in like 15 years, all the way through 1980s. 88, it was Carl Weathers plays an Ivy. I don't know why he has to be an Ivy League. He's a Harvard graduate from their law school who is a sergeant in the Detroit Police Department. And so, yeah, I don't know why he has to be like the smartest guy ever to be the Detroit awesome badass that he is cop wise, but he is, but whatever. It's got Vanity in it, Sharon Stone in it. Both of them show some gratuitous nudity out of no reason whatsoever. So like, if that's something that you like in your 80s movies, which it's something that no longer exists pretty much, it's definitely worth revisiting. If you have seen it, it's worth revisiting. If you have not seen it, I definitely recommend watching it if you like bad 80s action films, and it works. It's fun.
Yeah, I gotta check that out. I haven't seen it.
Last thing was Monster Hunter.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I wanted to watch it in the theater. Never found the time to. But the last I turned it on last night, and I'm not kidding you. I was a little tired, but I had to stay up because I fed my dogs late, so I had to make sure I was awake so I could take them for a second walk. And the movie is an hour and 40 minutes long, I think. And I started it at midnight, and I didn't finish it until 2:40 in the morning. I added an extra hour because I kept passing out for the last like 10 minutes of the movie. So I'd be watching it, and then it like would fade to black, and I would pass out, and then I would wake up, and I'd be like, "Oh man, I missed and I literally sat there fighting my brain and the television for the last hour of trying to watch like the last 20 minutes of the movie or something like that. It was ridiculous.
Oh, that's crazy.
It's a video game adaptation. It's done by P.W. Anderson or P.A.
Paul W.S.
Paul W.S.
So whatever, that guy who used to be married to Mila Jovovich, who is again the star of his movie, just like she was like in Resident Evil.
Are they not married anymore?
I don't think they are. I want to say they got divorced, but they might. I don't know. I
figured since she kept popping up in his movies that they were still together.
I read somewhere at one point that they got divorced, but then it must be like, well, you guys work well together, so just keep churning them out. not a whole lot to it. It's boring. It's fine for the most part. The action sequences are cool, kind of like with every Resident Evil movie, where everything's fine when you're in an action sequence, but there's no real story to it. There's nothing that's really happening, and it's just like blah. So
after seeing the Mortal Kombat trailer, I've wanted to go back and rewatch his movies from the 90s.
Dude, I bought the original Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
And I really dig that movie. Like,
yeah, me too.
It's super, super cheesy.
Oh, yeah.
Well, of course.
But like when I was reading an article talking about how excited he was for the new one. And he was talking about the first time that Sub-Zero and Scorpion walk in on the ship at the same time, and like how the entire audience was just like, oh! Like, because it was the first time we were ever seeing him, and which is hilarious because like I walked in, I saw it on opening weekend. It was a sold out theater in number 2 at Eastgate, and it was I sat in the back of the auditorium because there were barely any seats, and I mean the way he described it instantly took me right back to when I was watching it when I was 12, 13 years. What was that? That was 90.
I think the first one was 95 and the
95.
second one was 97.
97, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so 95. So I was 14 when that movie came out because I believe it was a summer release. I want to say it was like August or something. It was right before school started. And yeah, I just remember being in the auditorium and like everybody was super pumped when they walked into the room. And so that's like awesome. I read that and I was like, oh, I need to watch that again. And I was like, screw this. I can get it for $2 right now. So like I got it for $2. I'm watching it and I'm enjoying it. And the movie's solid for a 90s first adaptation of a video game. So it's way better than Street Fighter.
I mean, we had Super Mario Brothers before that.
Yeah.
Oh, side note, I have to bring this in now. So I rewatched Night at the Museum recently because my kids my oldest son loves Super Mario Brothers, the movie. And like once a month he picks that movie to watch as his movie night. And it like literally all of the rest of us, the moment he's like Super Mario Brothers, all of us are like,
I gotta say, I was like 7 when that movie came out. It worked for me. I recognize that it's terrible, but I think it's fun.
Well, so like he's like, I don't know why nobody watches it with him. Like all the kids usually watch the movie together, and every time he picks this movie, nobody watches it with him, and he got really upset the last time. Well, so I finally was like, dude, like all the other kids were like, can we watch something else? I was like, you have another option. You can watch Night at the Museum because I like that movie. You can turn that on. And the first Night at the Museum, still so much fun.
Oh yeah,
revisit it if you haven't seen it in a while. It's a lot of fun. My kids loved it. The Easter Island head alone, calling Larry Dum Dum through the whole movie is one of their favorite. Dum Dum, give me gum gum dum dum. Yeah, it's very fun and silly. So, but yeah, the Super Mario Brothers, I just think it's hilarious. My son being like, I love this movie. And everybody else is like, we're leaving now. See you later.
It is Super Mario Day as we're recording this.
It is March 10th. Had I thought ahead better, we could have planned today to be a Mario episode. But
next year,
we'll have to save it for next year. And March 10th will be our Super Mario Brothers episode next year. And we'll get to talk about that crappy movie.
On to other crappy movies.
Well, hold on. Real quick, I this week also watched Boss Level. Absolutely enjoyed it. Laughed through the entire thing. I like what they did. I enjoy. It's hilarious that I've watched like a couple of time loop movies like recently since we did the time loop episode. It's like suddenly a bunch of time loop movies are all coming out. But this one really worked for me. I had a lot of fun with it. I liked their storytelling narrative that they did with it because not only is it a time loop movie, it also jumps non-linear and goes back to show you things that happened before the situation that he's stuck in. So I really liked their narrative storytelling that way. Naomi Watts is just gorgeous. I absolutely enjoyed watching her again. She literally doesn't look like she's aged in the last 20 years. I when she first came on screen, I was like, wow, you are as beautiful as you were in 2000. Like, she just looks really good in this movie. And I agree with everything that Jason said about Frank Grillo. Like, I really dig him. I really enjoyed him in his Purge movies that he did. I thought he was awesome. I feel like that is what led us to feel like he could have or should have been the Punisher in some iteration.
So the second Purge movie, Purge Anarchy, is literally a Punisher movie. Like, you could take his character's name, pull it out, put Frank Castle's name in there, and you would totally be right there. It'd be perfect. It works because of the character arc, form, and everything. It literally could have been a Punisher movie. Just kind of like I kind of like think of Man on Fire with Denzel Washington.
Oh, sure.
In my opinion, is another movie that could literally be a Punisher movie.
Yeah.
Either one of those. If you could have just changed the title and put a Marvel slap on it, then it would have been fine. But Frank Grillo's great in the Purge stuff.
Yeah, and his character in Boss Level is just great. I enjoy the fact that it kind of just. I enjoy the fact of how meta it is about talking about how his life is like a video game, and that's literally kind of. It's literally him playing his life to get to a point to get just a little bit farther in the level. Like, when we catch up with him, he's like, I've never lived past 12:47 p.m. or whatever on this day. And so he finds a way eventually to make it past that time and to get farther into life. And like, I really just enjoy the way it's set up, and like, the boss of Mel Gibson, how he, gets to him, but then has to take multiple times to learn how to actually beat the boss. It's literally like playing a video game. And like, really enjoyed the movie. It was a lot of fun. And then the other thing that I watched this week was something that I was super hyped for before COVID shut the world down. And I was kind of disappointed with it. I watched the movie Antebellum, which was like promoted as like being a Jordan Peele movie, but apparently he only produced it. And then even when I looked at the list of producers, his name isn't listed on a producer. So I'm wondering if the poster actually said from the studio that gave you Get Out and Us, because like I couldn't see Jordan Peele's name attached to it anywhere.
I'm thinking it's like how Quentin Tarantino produced all those movies for a while. Where he just like, after it was done, he was like, "Oh, I like this. Put my name on the poster so it gets a larger release."
That's very possible. So the trailer is really deceiving compared to what the actual plot of the movie is. And I think that's why I was kind of disappointed with it, because I thought it was going to be a very weird, trippy Christopher Nolan-like time-shifting movie, because like it shows you the same character in like the Civil War days, and then it shows you the same character in like modern times. So I thought it was going to be very like trippy, like reincarnation, like, timelines melding stuff, because there's the scene in the past where she looks up and sees an airplane flying over her, and I had really high hopes and expectations for it. And like that's not like this movie ends up taking a Shyamalan twist, which isn't a bad thing to it, but it just wasn't what I was expecting from the movie. So while I was watching it, I like their narrative storytelling aspect to it. It does jump back and forth in time, and I like the way they set things up. What are you laughing about?
Okay, you are absolutely 100% correct. Jordan Peele is not a producer. There's 10 different producers, but one of the producers from Get Out and Us also produced this.
Okay, there we go.
Producer of Get Out and Us. So I don't know if it's Lionsgate that did all of them, or if it's just some other guy that did them all three. But yeah, they definitely plugged that to make it seem like a Jordan Peele thing.
For sure. And like the weird thing about watching the movie now, like after COVID, pushed it back basically a year, because it was supposed to come out last April, right before everything shut down. And I was really excited for it. I couldn't wait to watch it because I was very enthralled by the trailer. I'm really interested and curious if they made changes during COVID because of what was going on in the world with like the Black Lives Matter and things like that, because those are very like the things like the protests and everything that were going on last summer are like very central to kind of like the main story of this movie. And so if this was supposed to come out last April before like any of that stuff happened, like, and it was filmed a year before that, like, these guys obviously saw the writing on the wall and knew what was coming, because a lot of the content of this movie is directly related to the Black Lives Matter movement and stuff that happened last year. So I don't know if things got changed or altered based on that. I haven't looked deep enough into like like reading any articles about it or anything to find out if that's true, but if they didn't change anything, like these guys basically predicted everything that was going to happen last year in this movie, and it's really, really spot on and awkward. So as a white guy, I'm not their target audience for this movie, although I find it really interesting that the writing duo that wrote and directed this movie is one white guy and one black guy that were working together on it. I don't think I've ever really seen a writing duo that's mixed like that. Well, I guess Dave Chappelle and Neil Brennan, I guess, would be the only other one that comes to my mind, but they didn't do anything like they were comedy writers. So I don't know. It was just, I understand I'm not their demographic, and like I said, I liked the movie for what it was, but it was also very, just not being their target audience. I don't think I got it the way that I should have. But it's still worth watching because, like I said, it definitely. I could have seen M. Night Shyamalan producing this movie before I saw Jordan Peele producing it. Well, but then again, he's also doing The Twilight Zone, so I guess I can kind of see how all this stuff fits together. But Antebellum's worth a watch, but it's definitely a tough movie to watch. It's very, very tough. I will leave it at that. So that was everything we watched this week, or at least some of the stuff we watched this week, because the rest of my week was filled with watching a bunch of these Ninja Turtle movies that we're going to talk about, because I wanted to have them fresh on my mind. And that's the other thing. So jealous. That's the thing that I've really loved about this podcast recently is when Jason and I pick a topic, it gives me like a week to watch those movies that we're going to talk about to get them fresh in my mind, and it kind of dictates, when I'm bored, because Jason and I, and all three of us aren't back to work, in the theater business yet. Right. It forces me to go, I need to watch this so that it's fresh in my brain to talk about. So this week I watched all three of the movies. I watched both of the Michael Bay movies. I watched a couple of the animated movies that I hadn't seen. So I guess I'd seen the CGI movie. I watched one of the other animated movies that I hadn't seen. So it was a good Ninja Turtles week for me. I really enjoyed it. So we're going to start talking Turtles here. We're going to address the comic books first and kind of do the four iterations that the comic books had, and then we will jump into the pop culture timeline and kind of go from 87 to current. And we're not doing all the versions of it. Like, it would be a 4-hour show if we did every version there was. So I kind of went with the polls, the most popular things that were on the poll, kind of made sure they got pulled into. A few of the other bigger release stuff I wanted to make sure was in here. So we're going to kind of just touch base on all those things in chronological order there. But the first topic I want to talk about, Jason L. Mayer, who is your favorite Ninja Turtle and why do you gravitate to that person?
Leonardo, man.
Nice.
Blue's always been my favorite color. The katana's an awesome weapon. But then on top of that, I'm always, I always appreciate how do I say this? Steve Rogers is my favorite Captain America is my favorite Avenger. Mm-hmm. Leonardo's my favorite Turtle. My favorite, oh my gosh, I had the other in my brain. Huh?
Superman's your favorite Justice League.
Thank you. That's where I was going. Superman's my favorite. And it's all because they have this true north and they have these ideals and they don't waver. For them, obviously they have to throw something in there every now and then that makes them waver a little bit. But for the most part, they have this true north, these ideals that they will hold to and hold true to no matter what, for the most part. And it's just a common thing that I wish that I had better in my life, as far as it's something that I wish that I could attain to being that much of this is the only way. And I just, I gravitate towards those characters for some reason more so than others.
As far as Leonardo goes, he always seems to put the family first mentality in his character, which you are definitely that kind of person in real life. Your family is number one and most important to you, and you like unity and everything with your family. So I definitely see the Leonardo vibe from you.
Well, and I mean, like I said, with those other characters, the same thing, right?
Sure.
Nobody wants to rock the boat. They want to make sure the boat's steady and it's proper. And so, and that's what I gravitate towards, which is really weird because Cyclops is definitely was not my favorite X-Men.
Oh, interesting.
So, very interesting that I veered off with the X-Men compared to everybody else.
That is weird. Just out of curiosity, who's your favorite X-Men?
See, I was afraid you were going to ask that. So it started off when I was younger. I definitely was a Colossus guy.
Oh,
and I mean, you can still follow that rule of like he's got true north. He doesn't kill people. Sure. Like he got that whole thing. And he's a very loving person and a very artistic person. So he was my favorite growing up. And then after like really reading and seeing things like Wolverine, and it was before the movies came out.
Oh, sure.
But like with the comic books, like the internal torture of him and stuff ended up winning me over. So it was definitely Colossus way back in the day, though. So.
That's awesome. All right, Mr. Yotter, who is your Ninja Turtle, and why do you gravitate towards them?
It has always been Donatello for me.
Nice.
He's the smart one. You know, in the cartoons, it was always his invention that ended up saving the day. Like, you know, the cold open would be him tinkering with something that would, you know, blow up in his face or, you know, flood the layer or whatever. And then they'd go have their fight. And then it was always the perfect MacGuffin. Like they just, I have this idea. Yeah, this thing I've been working on is great. And he'd go back and come and save the day. Even in the original comic book, you know, that first issue was basically a one shot, and they kill Shredder at the end of it. And he's the one that does it. He knocks him off the side of the building with his bow staff.
Nice.
So I don't know. I've just always appreciated that.
I am not very well versed on the comic version of this. So did he do it on purpose?
Yeah. So there's this great shot of Shredder standing there, and he's got like one of Leo's katanas sticking out of him and one of Raph's sais sticking out of him. And he pulls out basically this grenade. Like Splinter gives him the chance to do the ritualistic suicide. And instead of taking it, he pulls out a grenade. And so Donatello launches his bow staff at him, knocks him off the side of the building. He falls like 5 stories, and then you just see like this explosion. So he dies real good at the end of the first issue.
And then they still eventually brought him back.
Oh, yeah. Well, they had to.
Yeah. Because Baxter Stockman was not a great villain after him.
No.
All right, so my guy has always been Raphael. And it's because I kind of previously in younger years had an anger management temper problem that maybe it's still kind of current and recent and whatnot, but I got in a lot of fights when I was younger. I like knives a lot, so the sais were always kind of cool to me. But yeah, it was really kind of just his attitude, wanting to be the loner, wanting to be the best, having trouble dealing with having Leonardo always be, you know, better than him from a certain point of view. But yeah, just that I think just being an angsty teenager, having a lot of violent outbursts and anger problems, I really just gravitated towards Raph. Really enjoyed, like, you know, he was kind of a dick. He was kind of sarcastic, but, you know, he was always there for his brothers no matter what. So he kind of did his own thing, but everybody always knew that, you know, he had their backs. So I definitely gravitated towards Raphael, you know, because I was just age appropriate, right, for, you know, what he was and how he was written.
Yeah, he's a great character, and I always liked his comedy in the old cartoon as well. Like his sort of dry, sarcastic, fourth wall breaking sense of humor was always great too.
Yep.
And just since Michelangelo isn't represented, just any Michelangelo fans out there, he has the most pure talent.
Sure.
So he's like the best fighter and everything. And so even though he's the one that slacks around and jokes, he's still able to hold his own in a fight. So
which is hilarious because like everybody can like, you can find somebody in these 4 turtles that you always could gravitate towards, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We always knew those people in high school that had like God-given talent that they didn't even like. I had friends on the football team who told me like one particular person that was on our football team in high school who literally would show up, walk into the weight room, lift up one weight and walk out. Cause that was considered if he came in and he lifted, that he was allowed to play football. But if he didn't come in and lift, then he wasn't allowed to. So he would literally show up and lift one weight and then just walk out because he was like, I don't need to lift weights. Sure. And just hearing those kind of stories is just like, wow. Like And he was the best player on the team. Like there was no question about it. So just kind of crazy that you could easily gravitate towards any of these characters, or at least know people who are literally these characters. So
and our Michelangelo is missing. In our previous lives as theater managers, we had a fourth manager that worked with us. His name was Matt. He was our goofball. He was our, he was always our comic relief. He made jokes all the time, never took anything seriously. And we've always, when working together, the three of us have always kind of gravitated towards these roles. And he was always our Michelangelo. He was always our comedy relief.
Although his favorite is Donatello. So
his favorite is Donatello, but I just can't see it, man. I see him as a Michelangelo. So let's start with the comic books. We're going to go through, there's been 4 different iterations of the comic books. We're going to run through those. The first one was the original 1984 comic, which Brandon talked about the fact that they killed off the Shredder in that one. It was completely in black and white. The very cool thing that I like about this, I learned it a long time ago, but doing research for this week, I was reminded of all of the things that this was done to parallel other comic books that were going on at the time. The inspirations for it included the New Mutants, because they had teenage characters that were mutants. A comic called Cerebus that I'm not familiar with, but it had animals that were mutated.
He's like a small white horse that stands on 2 legs, his back legs or something.
Something like that. He appeared in one of the issues, and that issue, they can't reprint because they don't have the rights to.
Oh, wow.
And so it's,
nice.
Yeah, I want to say he's a pig, or he looks like a white pig or a white small horse. It's a very weird looking character.
Very interesting. And then there was 2 other comics, Ronin, and then obviously the very famous Daredevil, who in both of those comics involved ninjas who had been underground taking over New York City. Splinter, the name of their mentor, is a play on Daredevil's mentor, who was Stick. I think that's hilarious. And then the Foot Clan is an obvious parallel to the Hand, which was Daredevil's nemesis ninja clan. So I thought that was really cool that they literally we like Daredevil, so we're going to take these things and just use a different word for the exact same thing. It's a very cool homage that I like about it.
Yeah, a little more directly with Daredevil too, their origin.
The mutagen.
More directly with how he was blinded and their mutation. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know a lot of Daredevil background, but
he was in the street, and his dad
stopped him.
His dad pushed him out of the way or something. I forget what, but a truck was coming and was going to hit him, and then the truck ended up crashing instead, and showered him in toxic chemicals, which instantly blinded him. But then he realized he could he heightened all the rest of his sentences.
So it blinded him, but it made the turtles human.
Exactly. Yeah.
If the mutagen had hit him and then gotten on the turtles, then that would make sense why they were turned into human versions.
Oh man. It's all coming together.
It's all coming together. But yeah,
we know one rat and 4 turtles does not. Nobody's hanging out with them in the sewers, so it would make a lot more sense if it washed on a human than it would wash on them afterwards.
If I remember right, in the first issue of Ninja Turtles, some of the early panels show that accident that you're talking about, and you can literally see a father pushing his son out of the way. And obviously, it's never said in that comic that it's Matt Murdock, but they put it in there as their homage to this is how it happened, and then one of the canisters fell down into the sewer. Gotcha. So yeah, really, really awesome way to set up the thing and just pay tribute to the comic that inspired you and whatnot. There's considered 4 volumes of Ninja Turtles comic books. The first one was the original black and white. It lasted 62 episodes. Eastman and Laird did the first 11 issues by themselves, and then they brought in some other people, and then that lasted until episode 50, or issue 50, when they came back, and did the last 12 by themselves. Yotter, do you have any more information on what really happened during that process? Why they ended up coming back?
Yeah, so those first 11 issues, they took it took 4 years for them to come out or something like that. I think the second issue didn't come out until over a year after the first one. Kind of like we talked about already, that first one was really supposed to be kind of a one-off thing, and then everybody was clamoring for more. So, yeah, they did 2 through 11, I think you said.
Yep.
And then now we're at like 86, and they had to start preparing for the cartoon. So they were so busy doing stuff with Playmates for the toys, and they had to sign off on every issue or every episode of the show. And so they kind of started to hand off some of that creative.
Gotcha.
And then they came back in issue 50, and they did 50 through 62. It was a year-long arc called City at War, which is essentially like a huge gang war in New York after from the power vacuum from Shudder's death. And so
okay. Nice. Very cool.
Yeah. It was really interesting.
Mayor, did you read any of those original run comics? No? None of them? Right on.
My first exposure to them was definitely the original cartoon series.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, we'll get to that here in a few minutes. Volume 2 lasted from 1993 to 1995, and it only lasted for 13 issues. This was after the original movies came out. There was starting to be a decline in popularity with the Ninja Turtles. A guy named Jim Lawson was in charge of these 13 issues, and I believe, correct me, Yotter, that he was one of the guys that came in to help with that original run. He became one of their main go-to guys at that point.
Yeah, he's been one of the primary turtle artists for 30 years now. I've met him a few times. Super nice guy.
Nice.
But yeah, so he did all the artwork for that run. It picked up, I think, immediately after Volume 1.
Yeah, I believe so.
Kind of carried on those themes, and it was in color, but
yeah,
but was basically the only difference.
Didn't last too long. Apparently, those issues didn't sell very well, so there was a decline in popularity at that moment. And then in 1996, Image Comics somehow came up with the rights. I don't know how it happened, but Image Comics had the rights. Hold on, would this be? Oh. Well, so I've got the comic book that says summer of 1990. So yeah, that was still during Volume 1. This was the movie adaptation comic book.
Yeah, so that's Archie. Archie did their own series.
Okay, so this is separate from Volume 1.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Archie series, they adapted the movies into comic books, but then they also did. I think the first handful of issues were adaptations of episodes of the show, and then they kind of ran with that art style and that sort of lighter.
Yeah, it seems to be called Turtles Adventures. All the Archie comic ones. Yeah. I got a bunch of those issues. I'm missing some in the middle, but I got a bunch of those Archie Comics ones, which I apparently didn't put on the list of what we were going to talk about tonight. But yeah. So there's that Archie Comics run that was between in the middle of Volume 1, apparently.
Yeah, it was kind of its own thing, but
gotcha.
It's a lot of fun. Like I said, it spun out of the cartoon, so
sure. So back to Volume 3, which was from 96 to 99, they brought in Eric Larson, who was the guy that created and wrote Savage Garden. Or Savage Dragon, not the 90s musical popular band who was obviously on my mind, Savage Garden. He wrote Savage Dragon, completely different.
It's really silly. It's not as silly as The Tick necessarily, but Savage Dragon had a very light tone to it. It was a good book.
Nice. This Volume 3 went back to black and white. I don't know if they just thought that the color maybe hurt Volume 2 or whatnot, but they went back to black and white. However, in 2018, IDW now has the rights to the Ninja Turtles, and they republished all 23 issues from 96 to 99 as color books. So they are now available in the original black and white or in color.
They also gave it an ending.
They
brought back the writer and artist that worked on the series back in the 90s, and they gave it I think 3 new issues to kind of wrap everything up.
In my research reading about it, there sounds like some insane storylines that went on during this.
It's absolutely nuts. Yeah.
What do I got going on? Leo loses one of his hands. Donnie becomes a cyborg.
Yep.
Raphael decides to take over the role of the Shredder. I don't know if that means
he also loses an eye, so he's like a pirate.
Really? Oh, nice. I don't know if that necessarily means that Raphael is actually a bad guy, or if he's like doing it to infiltrate the Foot.
It's more like the Foot was aimless, and so he was kind of taking control and hoping to use them as a power for good.
Oh, okay, cool.
Kind of.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So really bizarre stuff that apparently Eric Larson was writing for that. Does that fall in line with like the weird, like was Savage Dragon weird like that?
Yeah, I mean, Savage Dragon, it was a cop who was half dragon, half man, essentially, he had this huge fin on his head. I just remember it being quite silly and just kind of out there. So it doesn't surprise me. You saying this doesn't surprise me that this is how crazy the Turtles got during this run.
I've only read Savage Dragon's crossovers with Spawn, and it's always like a weird, like good cop, bad cop thing.
Oh,
but it's usually fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Spawn in the beginning, but Spawn definitely took some weird turns later down the road.
Yeah,
and I really, on a side tangent, real quick, the Image line it was kind of crazy and cool at the time because you literally had Marvel and DC who literally held on to, if you made this character, no matter who created it, we own it. We own every aspect of it. So you had all of the major players from Marvel and DC who literally just went, well, screw you. And they went and started their own company, and literally anything that they created was theirs forever, was their IP, their intellectual property. And so like, there were so many things that got spun out of that. And then what's weird is ever since Image has kind of dissolved from where it was originally. Cause like, Spawn is still an Image book, I believe, but like, Todd McFarlane created a character named Angela, and she was
actually Neil Gaiman, but it was in Spawn.
Sorry. Yeah, good point. Neil Gaiman created Angela for Spawn, and then ended up selling it to Marvel, or was it DC?
Yeah, it was Marvel because she's she's an Asgardian now.
Yeah, so it jumping these complete continuity points and everything else, and then like Jim Lee sold all of the things that he created were all under a title called Wildstorm.
Oh, gotcha.
Wildstorm, and then he and it was Wildcats and Stormwatch kind of smashed together.
Gotcha.
And all of his characters, literally, he took them all to DC and sold them to DC, and so all of his intellect. It's like, so they started it to get away from it, but then they just turned around and sold it to these companies anyway. It's just kind of nuts.
There's
like
really
the five of them or whatever all made their money. So
I
don't fault them.
Jim Lee's making tons of it now, running all of DC. Anyway.
Oh yeah,
sure. There's a really amazing documentary that discusses a lot of the stuff you talk about. It's I can't remember the name of it, but it's literally a documentary about Image Comics, and it's got interviews with all of those guys. Really insightful, really crazy, because they talk a lot about what was going on in the comic book industry back then, and it's fun to hear them talk about it and see why they did what they did.
One of the really cool things, taking this back to Ninja Turtles, full circle here, that I would really like to get. Jim Lee designed the 4 turtles, and McFarlane made action figures of them.
Oh.
It was like super limited edition, and they had like comics that came with them, but I would love to find those someday. They go for like $70 a piece.
I'm going to look into that. I have no idea what that even looks like.
It's up on eBay right now.
They look so cool. It's like 90s era Jim Lee drawing the Ninja Turtles.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Favorite artist of all time. Like,
oh yeah, I love Jim Lee.
I have Jim Lee's autograph on one of my X-Men comics.
Nice.
Yeah, he was
he's one of the few people that can really draw people well.
Sure. The Comic-Con that Jason and I went to back in 2000, it was, at Rosemont in Chicago and whatnot. He just happened to be one of the guys there, and I just happened to have I got him and Chris Claremont to sign one of my X-Men comics that he had drawn and Claremont had written. The X-Men that has the 4-panel fold-out cover.
Oh, yeah.
Number 1, 1993 deluxe edition.
Yes, that one. Yeah, I got Claremont's autograph on it, and I got Jim Lee's autograph on it.
So, literally, like, that was my 12 to 14, 15 year range was like nothing X-Men comic book.
Sure.
So.
All right, so Volume 4 started in 2001, and it ran to 2014. Peter Laird teamed back up with Jim Lawson. They brought the series back to Mirage Comics, which was Eastman and Laird's, not fake company, but small company that they created to do the original Ninja Turtle run. They completely just skipped over Volume 3 altogether. They jumped back to where Jim Lawson had wrapped up Volume 2 at, and they started their continuity from there. Anything special or important that happened in that fourth series?
Yeah, so a couple things. Those extra issues of the Image run that IDW has done has wrapped it up so that it can be in continuity now.
Oh, cool.
Like Donatello's no longer a cyborg, and like Leo has his hand back. And,
good.
Like, so it was kind of things that they had planned for the long run that they kind of shoehorned into 2 or 3 issues there.
Okay.
So you can read the whole thing now, and it makes sense. The big thing about Volume 4 is there's a time jump, so they're like in their 30s.
Oh, okay.
And it starts off really strong, and then they separate the turtles. So each of them kind of has their own story going on, and it just gets really slow.
Oh,
it's not really my favorite. The big thing of note is the last 4 issues they only made a few hundred copies of, and so they're like
pretty rare,
super rare and hard to find. But
well, and then I'm curious how rare and hard to find they are going to be in comparison to what happened after 2009, when Mirage sold all the rights of the Ninja Turtles off to Nickelodeon, and essentially becoming, properties of Paramount. In the deal, when they sold the rights off, Peter Laird held on to the fact that he was always allowed to continue making his own Ninja Turtle comics that they had no control over. He was allowed to put out 18 issues a year, and he's never even came close to that.
Nope.
Like, I don't even think he's put out 18 issues in the last, what would that be, 22 years, or 12 years now?
I think he's done 2 issues since then.
Yeah, something crazy. And a couple of the issues I was reading, like one of them was a free comics issue. One of them was only ever released online. Like he has these rights to his characters to do whatever he wants with, and he just kind of hasn't been putting out any product.
Yeah, that was something I brought up to Jim Jim Lawson, one of the times that I talked to him at a con, was like, you're at a point where you can do like 2 or 3 issues, bring them back together, and just kind of put a bow on the whole Mirage story. And he's like, yeah, Pete only comes into the office like once a month now, but
oh wow,
but like we kind of have it planned. I just need a script. Like if we can just put it out, like I agree with you completely. So like I guess he talks to him about it every once in a while.
Nice. But these cons, are they ones that have been here in Indy?
Yeah, 2 of them been in Indy, one in Kentucky and one in Ohio. Yeah,
I know you've done cons that are outside the state, so I was just curious if Jim Lawson actually came here to Indianapolis.
Yeah, he's been here twice.
Nice, that's awesome. All right, so that's kind of the knowledge that we've got on the comic books and whatnot, and Brandon's insight, because I only ever really read the original run, and I didn't read it until years later when I bought like a trade paperback of them. I never read the comics when I was younger. I read the Archie comics when I was younger, but never the actual original Mirage ones. I'd say I was probably in the 20-ish range. I'm pretty sure I got it at Fritz's comic book store when I bought that trade paperback of the reprints of the first 10 or 12 issues of the Eastman and Laird series. Which was fun to read and really cool, but none of the other ones I have any experience with, so I'm really glad to have Brandon's insight on those.
Yeah. I will say before we move away from the comics, after Laird sold off the rights, Nickelodeon gave the comic book rights to IDW, and they've done the most prolific run of Ninja Turtles ever.
Nice.
They're well past 100 issues now.
Oh.
And the very first thing they did was they brought in Kevin Eastman, and he has been quarterbacking this whole story. So like
That's
his
awesome.
name's at the top. He does like layouts and the basic script, and then they bring in somebody to do like the actual words and the actual artwork and everything. But this is definitely Kevin Eastman looking at 30 years of Turtles and making one cohesive story out of it. And I think awesome. It's the best comic book run that they've done.
Well, so you hopefully will have an answer to this for me. I just kind of realized this and put it together. Has there been a falling out between Eastman and Laird?
I don't think so. There's an age difference between them.
Oh, okay.
I think it's like 8 to 10 years or something. And so when they got together, like, you know, it was kind of the fun thing, and like Eastman is all about that. But in the 90s, once he had a bunch of money, he bought Heavy Metal magazine.
Oh.
And so he got really into, like, he was like the chief editor of that.
Okay.
And, so he was just kind of over it and just kind of saw it as like a cash revenue. And
so did he
let
sell
Laird
his rights off to Laird at one point?
He did, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Around 99 or 2000, something like that.
Okay.
Laird bought all I don't know if it was just the creative rights or what exactly.
Sure.
And when we get into some of the later cartoons and movies and stuff, I'll have some more insight there. But,
cool.
As far as that goes, yeah, he had basically was done with the property. And then when Laird sold the rights, he came back in.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I look forward to hearing the other tidbits you've got on that.
There's that good documentary Turtle Power.
Yes.
And then that show about action figures, the toys that made us.
The toys that made us. Yep. That's what I forgot to watch this week.
Yeah, both of those kind of bring those two kind of back together, and they've been talking a little bit more. There's a comic book series right now called The Last Ronin. Okay. That is one of their old ideas kind of brought to life by IDW.
Oh, cool.
So they kind of work together on that in so far as doing the big picture scripting.
Good, that's awesome. That Turtle Power documentary you're talking about, I absolutely loved it when I watched it, but it was probably like 5 years ago, because I know you and I talked about it after I watched it. I tried to find it this week because I thought I had bought it like 5 years ago, but it's not in any of my libraries that I have, so I must have just watched it on like Hulu or Netflix or something.
It was on YouTube for a long time.
Or maybe that. Oh, I didn't think about looking there this week.
So I have the DVD and I've seen it on Vudu, so I know it's the digital copies purchasable. But
yeah, I remember watching it and I absolutely loved that documentary, but I didn't remember a lot of the stuff from it. So I tried to find it this week to watch and didn't. So I need to make that happen soon, especially if it's available on YouTube, because it's a really good documentary. So following the comics, in 1987. The Ninja Turtles went like batshit crazy popular. And I put up a poll on the community Facebook page asking what everybody's favorite version of the Ninja Turtles was. And we actually ended up with a tie. One of the options was the original film trilogy. Another one of the options was the 1987 animated cartoon. And they both ended up with the exact same number of votes. So, apparently, nostalgia is a huge thing, and I am surprised and find it really cool that those are the two things that people cared about the most with the Ninja Turtles. So, first up is in 1987, they created the CBS animated show, which lasted 10 seasons, I believe, 196 episodes over 10 seasons. It introduced us to a wild and bonkers array of weird characters, starting with Krang, the Dimension X characters like the Neutrinos. It brought in the Technodrome. Bebop and Rocksteady were some bad guy mutants.
Can we just talk about the fact that the Technodrome was like this humongous thing that just could drive around
underground? Yep.
With a big eyeball on top.
Yep.
I always wanted that play set when I had my original TMNT figures.
Toys. Yeah, I never got it either, and it was really cool.
I had it. I didn't have the sewer play set, but I had that.
I had the sewer playset, and I regret that I don't. Later on, we'll talk about some of the toys that I still have in my possession. I had the sewer playset. I actually bought it at a garage sale for like $2 because my parents would never pay the full price for it.
That's amazing.
And we lived in Salt Lake City at the time. Every Saturday morning, my family's thing. Well, my dad and my brother and I's thing. My mom didn't care to go with us. We would go garage sailing. And I ended up finding the sewer set, and I'm pretty sure I paid like $2, maybe $3 for it. And I was over the moon, ecstatic, happy. It was missing like like the big green pipe that went up the left side. It was missing that, but like it still had like the bed and everything else with it. Like I was happy for a $2 to $3 purchase on it. But yeah, like the animated series was very much tied directly into the toys that were coming out at that point, which is why the Toys That Made Us episode was so fun to watch, and just watch the evolution of all these various versions of the Ninja Turtles and why they were tied into certain things.
Well, yeah. But I mean, like, they also had the entire like landscape laid out for them, right? Because like here you had He-Man and G.I. Joe and Transformers, who had literally, it was all these Hasbro things that were like, we're gonna make a cartoon to sell our toys. And then Turtles piggybacked and did the exact same thing, but I almost say that they did it better, almost. But but yeah,
I mean, that was the whole thing. That the agent went to Eastman and Laird and was like, "Hey, I want to make a Ninja Turtle or a action figure line out of these Ninja Turtles. These are great." And then the only person that would listen to him was Playmates, and Playmates was like, "We'll do this, but you need a cartoon to back it." So they're like, "Okay, let's make a cartoon." And like, it was the most roundabout way to get to a cartoon, but
sure. Well, and you know what? I was actually going to save this till later in the show, but since we're kind of on the topic right now, I'm going to go ahead and bring out, like, I've held on to a lot of toys from my childhood, and the line of Ninja Turtles, like, here's the original Leonardo from back then. I have the original Michelangelo from back then. Granted, he only has one nunchuck. I don't know what happened to the other one.
I like how he's like, like, he's not just like, oh, look.
I've got my original Raphael from that series. And full circle, I have all four of them, including Donatello from that series.
That's awesome. Those are in good shape too, man.
Oh, they're in wonderful shape. I have Michelangelo's elbow has a little stuff on it, but then I also, to top off the set, I still have my Bebop and Rocksteady from back then.
Dude, I am so jealous. That's awesome.
I have held on to all of them for the last like 30 years of my life because I love me some Ninja Turtles.
That is
I had all four of the originals, and I had Splinter, and Splinter had like a rubber head.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, well, I mean, like all the turtles do too, but like his was like a long rubber head, and it was a very odd feel to it. But
totally agree.
I always thought his cloth robe was weird. Like everything else was
plastic. He had the cloth robe and the very weird head. My brother, for whatever reason, Splinter was his favorite character on the show. So like Splinter was always his toy. So like as I preserved and cared about those and kept them safe, Splinter was just my brother's toy, and I have no idea what ever happened to it. I wish I did.
Yeah, I have no idea what happened. Like I have a lot of I have some, like my G.I. Joe collection. I have a ton of them still.
Yep.
I have some He-Man stuff that's in my garage that I need to clean up. But like, I have no idea whatever happened to my turtles. Like,
I had a huge Rubbermaid full of action figures, and we moved when I was a sophomore or junior in high school. Somehow it got lost in the move.
No.
I really feel like my parents just dropped it off at Goodwill or something, but
that is
they won't fess up.
I'm going to give you insight from a parent. Yes, that does.
I've brought it up so many times, and I'm like I know that's what happened, and I'm like, you know, Mom, this action figure that I used to have is worth like $100 now.
Well, Jason, I've been holding on to a lot of things from my childhood, and you're about to help me in the near future because I have 3 or 4 of my old G.I. Joe characters that I did not get rid of, but their rubber bands snapped on them. And I know you have recently become a professional at repairing G.I. Joes.
I wouldn't say a professional, but yes, I did something. I've probably fixed a total of like, I'd say somewhere in the realm of like 50 or 60 Joes.
That's awesome.
Between the Joes and the Cobras. The only bad part is there's some that the problem, side tangent obviously here, but side problem with these are, there was a point in time where they did a Ninja Force, which kind of like brought back the spring action loaded like chops or kicks or whatever, and those are glued closed.
Really?
Spring inside of them, so I can't fix them. That and Zartan, Zarena, and Xandar are Zartan and his brother and sister have that same problem too. I'm guessing it's probably because of the color changing skin that they did some kind of like dip in them or something, so that you can take out the screw, but you can't actually pull apart the body to replace the rubber band.
Really?
But yeah, so like I fixed a ton of them. I know that there are some that I no longer have that make me sad, but you know, I gave them to a friend, and then he gave them back to me when I asked for them back. And I mean, I actually gave them to him. So whatever he did with
a bummer, because Xandar is one of the ones that you should be able to fix for me, because
yeah, he's like super glued or hot glued or something. His sides don't pop, man. Like his torso does not open up.
Yeah, no, but like there's where's the thing? There's his rubber band right in there, man. Like you should be able to hook that out for me and fix him.
Dude, I tried. I haven't looked deeply into it online, but who knows?
Fix me, Jason, fix me.
I was gonna say it might be worth getting out like an X-Acto knife or something and just like going a little deeper.
Yeah,
if it's broken anyway.
Well, yeah, and I tried to like wedge a screwdriver in there and try to get the leverage, because I thought maybe he was just stuck, and it's like, no,
really.
It's not stuck. So
well,
I'm gonna
that's sad news.
Yeah, maybe an X-Acto knife is the way to go. Like I said, I haven't looked onto it online. There's a lot of forums online that are yojo.com is a place where I went, and it was helpful because I had tons of pieces that were like, here's an arm, a torso, a butt, and like legs, and it's like, well, there's some black in here, and I don't remember this character, so like I literally was going like page by page. And then being like clicking on somebody and looking like zooming in on
this guy.
Yeah, zooming in to make sure that I had all the pieces proper and putting them back together. So, but I still got like the original, the second Snake Eyes, the third Snake Eyes.
Oh yeah,
second and third first Storm Shadow and second Storm Shadow.
Yeah, I have the first like 7 of each of those because they were my favorites.
I think I have the second Cobra Commander, but not the first. The second and third Cobra Commander. So like, yeah, it's a pretty cool collection.
I never got the first Cobra Commander, but I had the like stupid like Darth Vader wannabe Cobra Commander where it had like the gray metal helmet that came out this way and came back in.
Yeah, that's the third one.
That's the third one.
First one was the shield.
Yep.
And then the second one was like he had like a cloak.
Oh yeah, good call. Good call.
A cloak, and it was kind of like, it was like bell bottomed almost, like a piece of cloth that was on him that was kind of bell bottomed. And then the third one was him in the silver
mask,
exosuit or whatever reason. So
I unfortunately never had any of the. I liked those other Cobra Commander versions, and I just never ended up getting those. I don't know why.
I can remember some of them. Like I'm missing Spirit, who was their tracker, who was a native. Yeah. I'm missing Jinx. I'm missing what was the other one that just popped in my head? Destro. Destro was always my favorite of the Cobras. So I'm kind of bummed that I don't have him, but it is what it is. I have what I have, and then they're pretty cool. And my kids were having fun. I actually bought a new. They re-released the Hiss, the Cobra.
I think I need to be in Jason's inventory. I think Jason
that's a later
deserves
one.
Me. What?
Yeah, that's one later, man. He was never like that poofy. That looks like a linebacker from the 90s NFL.
Jason doesn't want this Destro, so he's going to go back in Shane's collection.
Did not say that. So, all right. So back to Teenage Mutant Ninja
Let's talk about the Ninja Turtles again. So we were talking about, we got sidetracked with toys because I brought out those. The 87 cartoon, what's the origin of it other than the toys, Brandon?
I mean, that's pretty much it.
That is?
They went back to the comics and pulled some of the main characters, but
I was gonna say Baxter Stockman ended up in the anime. Well, Shredder is obviously the big bad overall throughout the whole show. They didn't kill him off in the first episode like they did in the comics. They threw him off a building in the first episode, though, didn't they? And then he laid low for a few episodes and then came back. But I don't think they ever tried to make you think he was dead.
No, I don't think so. They definitely didn't make you think he was dead. I'm pretty sure he's in every episode.
Okay, because I know Baxter Stockman is a big character in those first few episodes when he creates the Mausers and stuff like that.
Yeah. He doesn't get mutated into the Fly Baxter until towards the end of season 2. Yeah. And I think that's how most people know him.
But. Yeah, it's Fly Baxter, yeah.
Isn't that where they gave everybody their new color, though? Like, because originally they were all black and white, but they were red after that.
Yep.
Yeah, so on the covers, they would have red bandanas, but they'd be all black and white. So they were only paying for one additional color when they printed the
Which
comics.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that goes back to the toys even. Like, just to differentiate them. They each have to have different colored bandanas. They put the letters on their belt buckles, and they really tried to sell that.
It's even really weird, like how different color. Like Leo is a very dark green. Sorry, this mirrored camera thing again. Like Leo is a very dark green, and Raph is a very bright green. Like even
Donatello's like olive green.
Yeah, he's like not. He's barely green at all.
But again, that was for the action figures. So when they get to the cartoon, we're just doing this one green for all of them. And so especially in seasons 3 through 7 is when it was syndicated, I believe. And there's like 50 episodes a season.
Sure, yeah.
There's so many mistakes in that where somebody with an orange bandana is talking with Donatello's voice.
Yep.
And they were just trying to crank them out so fast.
And nobody caught it, and they were, or if they caught it, they were like, "Never mind, just keep going."
The kids aren't going to care.
No, not at all. Was Slash a comic character, or was that somebody created for the cartoon?
That was created for the cartoon. Bebop and Rocksteady were created for the cartoon. Yep. Krang was kind of their adaptation of an Utrom, which was in the comic. There was like a brain-like alien creature.
Leatherhead?
He was in the comics. I don't know which came first.
Okay, gotcha.
But he was in the comics fairly early on.
And then this is somebody that was listed as one of the main people on the animated series, and I don't remember who General Trag was.
General Trag was, I think, a rock soldier.
Okay. Yeah, the big rock guy. Okay, yes, that makes sense.
So Krang had like his armies because he was General Krang.
Yes, that's right. So, yeah.
Or Lord Krang or something like that. And his whole thing was he was trying to bring the armies of Dimension X to Earth to conquer it.
That's right. Yeah.
And so that was like one of the generals of his army. And then later in the series, the last couple seasons, they had a character that was very similarly named to that, Lord Drag, I want to say.
Oh, okay.
And he was like basically a replacement for Shredder and Krang because they thought kids were getting tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. So they bring this guy in, but it's the same thing. He's an alien that wants to conquer Earth. So I don't know. It is what it is.
I can't find it quickly. I have the first DVD they released that was just the first 5 episodes that they considered season 1 of the show.
Yeah.
And it, like you said earlier, like it was weird because like season 1 has like 5 episodes, season 2 has like 10 episodes, season 3 has like 20 episodes, and then seasons like 4, 5, 6, and 7 have like 40 to 45 episodes each.
Yeah.
And then the later seasons started going back down in number, but it was really interesting to go back and rewatch those first 5 episodes. Because the other thing is like thinking back on the show, like obviously it was just something that I watched when I was a kid on TV. I didn't care about continuity. I wasn't trying to watch them in order. I didn't like when it was on and I watched it. It's something that like I should try to watch in chronological order. I tried to, they're all available on Vudu, but it's like, it's weird because it's $10 a season on Vudu. It doesn't matter if it has 10 episodes in it or if it has 45 episodes in it. It's $10 a season on Vudu. So it's one of those things where I was thinking this week, like I should go and buy like the seasons that have 40 and 45 episodes in them, because that's a lot of Ninja Turtles for $10.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but those are probably the ones that we like. I know I watched a lot of Ninja Turtles, but I'm pretty sure like near the end, like I'm pretty sure I got through the first like 3 or 4 seasons probably constantly. Yeah. But like I know I did not watch the later seasons.
Yeah, I agree. Like probably by like 92, I was done watching the show. So those first 5 seasons are probably where the majority of the episodes I would remember would be coming from. Because by the end of middle school / high school, like I just had too much other stuff going on, and I after the 3 movies in 93, like I had kind of fallen off of the Ninja Turtles bandwagon at that point.
That's fair.
Until I got older. But now let's move on to 1989, when the Ninja Turtles NES video game came out. As you can see, all red bandanas on the box art.
That game sucks.
Yeah, that game sucks because it's hard. Yes. The game is a lot of fun, but I think I've beat this game once in my life.
Like, might be the only one who's ever done it.
This game, specifically the underwater level, is the one that I hate the most. Like 8 bombs in 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Like,
and you can't touch anything.
You can't touch any of the things or the plants that are under there, or I think like one time in my life I remember like that's the level that I couldn't get past. I think like one time I used a Nintendo Power or something to get past it. Like it told you the path to take and like all this stuff. I think that's like I think there's only like one level after the underwater one at the dam. If I remember right. I can't remember. But I think I've only ever beaten that game one time in my life. And who knows, I might be misremembering as a child, but I have a vague memory of actually beating the underwater level once.
So I was like 6 when it came out. Sure. So obviously I played the crap out of it, even though I had no video game skills whatsoever. So I got to the point where just from playing it so much, I could get through the water levels. But then after that, like all of my characters have like 1 bar of health left.
Sure.
You're in a van the turtle van driving around the city. Like, so you have to find the levels to fight people.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And it's like, once I finally found a level, I would go in and just immediately die. Like,
sure.
It was rough.
Yeah, it was a very tough game. It sold 4 million cartridges, which was $125 million worth of video games at that point. Pretty successful game, but yeah, like I said, man, like I think maybe in my life I beat it once, and 98% of the time, I don't think I ever got past that bomb defusing underwater level.
You know what it did introduce that has stuck around to this day with side scrollers. The flashing boss when he's close to death.
Oh, sure. Yep.
When you get him down to that last bar, that's a Ninja Turtle thing that has gone on to be implemented into other games like that.
Very cool. That was one really kind of fun thing about it. When you were above ground, it was an overhead view, and you would be able to move around and go inside buildings or go inside sewers. But once you went inside one of those things, it turned into the side scroller game. Yeah. So it was kind of cool. I don't think you did very much overhead fighting, but I remember there were some times that you would do overhead fighting, like out in the streets.
I've heard it's kind of similar to the Grand Theft Auto game that was on NES. I've never played it.
Yeah, I've never played any Grand Theft Auto games, so it wouldn't surprise me, though. That game was followed up with the 1989 arcade game, which became Turtles 2.
The fact that Shane's just like...
Mint in box. Check my eBay listings.
It became
that one was a lot easier to play.
Yes, a lot easier to play and a lot more fun to play. So the arcade version of it, if I remember correctly, was 4 people, and depending on which of the 4 stations you put your money into, that determined what character you would play. And the joysticks and buttons were color-coded, so like Mikey, Donnie, Leo, Raph, maybe? I can't remember for sure the order that they were in. But I feel like I was always far right when I was trying to play Raphael, but I could be wrong about that. But anyway, it was entirely side-scrolling, and a lot of fun. I believe, well, this version, obviously being a Nintendo game, was only 2 players, so you would get to pick of the 4 players who you wanted to be. Every time you died, I believe you got to choose if you wanted to change which character you were or not. But yeah, just a lot more cartoony. The first one was like very much just like a regular 8-bit, Mario type, side-scrolling game or whatnot. This one kind of tried to do more 3-dimensional feel to it, with buildings and things in the background having, getting smaller as it was farther away, and like trying to give you depth of field while you were playing.
Yeah, you could move like up and down on the screen too to get like further away, and
yeah,
it definitely did that.
So yeah, definitely a lot more fun. And this was, being the second one of the things they changed was they kind of changed the dynamic of each of the turtles. Like Leonardo was a very well-rounded character. He had like medium attack range and medium speed. Then you had somebody like Donatello, who was a slower character to play, but he could hit people from a lot farther away with his bow. I remember Raph and Mikey being like very fast characters, but having very like short, like, the nunchucks and the size, couldn't attack people as far away, but they could attack a lot faster. So it was kind of cool for them to take those personalities of the turtles and transform them into like things that affected your gameplay with the turtles.
Did they introduce the special abilities in this game, or was it in the next one?
I think it was in what's technically Turtles 4. I think the Super Nintendo one might have been the first one where they introduced the special. Although,
if you hit like jump and attack at the same time, they would do like some special.
Yeah, well, that could have been this one. I feel like that's something that's in this one. The jump attack one I think is in this one. But I know in either Turtles 3 or 4 they did. Where it had to be Turtles 3 then, because you had to push the A and B button at the same time, and then you would do like your special attack. So
I remember Raph's like drill move that he did.
Yeah, and I think didn't Mikey like get down on the ground to like spin on his back like around? Yeah. This one had different. The foot were the main villains in most of the levels, and they had like 3 or 4 different like color coded villains, so you knew if it was like a foot that was going to like shoot a rocket at you, or if it was a foot that was going to like try to stab you, or they were all color coded to being different foot members and whatnot. Jason, you got anything else on the Turtles 2 game you want to say?
No. I'm sorry. I'm just looking up information about all the video games.
Gotcha.
You're good.
Cool. Then let's jump to the movie that Yotter has the poster behind him. The very first 1990 Ninja Turtles film. It's the start of the original trilogy. It's the best of the original trilogy. It's an alarm going off. Cool.
Wake up, Jason.
It's a really good mixture of the comics and the animated series. They did a good job of bringing in the dark, gritty violence from the comics, which unfortunately did not make it into the 2 sequels, which is why I consider this one the best. But then it took a lot of the comedy and fun humor from the animated series, melded them together, and just gave a really good, fun story, an origin story that also was just fun to watch. It's introduced us to Sam Rockwell. It was one of his first speaking roles in film.
Regular or menthol?
What's that?
Regular or menthol?
Yeah. There are 2 other people that are also Foot Clan members that don't get any speaking roles. That's Skeet Ulrich and Scott Wolfe. They are both in the Foot Clan party sequences and whatnot. Jim Henson's Creature Shop did the turtle costumes for the movie. They did it for the first 2 films, and then they went with somebody else for the 3rd film. Which the ones in the 3rd film, we'll get there, but those suits look terrible.
Yeah, they're not great.
No. So it's got the origin story. It introduces how they meet April O'Neil. She ends up with one of Raphael's size. It introduces Elias Koteas as Casey Jones, who he is absolutely amazing and awesome in that character. A character that comes back for the 3rd movie, and we'll talk more about his character in the 3rd movie. But he is he's a good antagonist for Raphael in this first film. Their first meeting in the park is a lot of fun. Their banter is really good. I really enjoy when he becomes like in the last half of the movie when he becomes like ingrained in the Ninja Turtles April dynamic. When they end up out at the farmhouse, I feel like his character is very fun and enjoyable to being a part of the group.
How spoiled is April O'Neil, right? Like, I mean, she gets this wonderful apartment right above an antique store that was just
shop.
given to her. Yep. And then she's got the family farm, too. It's like, wow.
Must be village, too.
Karen.
Yeah. She's got her apartment in the East Village or whatever. Like,
she lives like across the street from the Friends. Like, you can see Monica and Rachel's apartment.
Just a few years before gentrification, apparently.
Yeah. This also had a really good voice cast for the characters. They brought in Corey Feldman as Donatello, and then Josh Pius, who is a very small-known actor that I really enjoy. He did Raphael's voice. Probably his most notable character is Patrick Dempsey's sidekick in Scream 3. The shorter one that makes jokes at all the crime scenes. Yeah. Jason doesn't remember.
Because Dempsey was the detective that was working on the case, and
and then Josh Pius was his sidekick, who has the great line, "Wow, 10 more murders and we can make a calendar." Yeah,
I heard his voice when I watched through the Scream back in October.
Nice,
and I was like, "Oh, I know this guy."
Mm-hmm. And then Ernie Reyes Jr. was inside the Donatello suit as the stunt guy for that, which. They enjoyed working with him so much they brought him back for the second movie, which we'll get to. But
it's also in Surf Ninjas.
Oh, Surf Ninjas is so good, man! I love Surf Ninjas. Him and Rob Schneider.
Yeah.
It's actually sad. Like I know he's dealt with a lot of health issues recently, and like I hope he's doing. I haven't seen an update recently, but I know a couple of years ago there was a lot of campaigns to try to help raise money for whatever was going on with him, and that was very sad to hear he was having such a bad time.
Yeah, I've seen his name popping up and stuff again lately, so I'm hoping he kind of turned a corner and got whatever was wrong. I feel like it was a kidney thing.
Yeah, it was something that was kind of major.
Yeah, it was kidneys or liver or something like that. Yeah. So, I'm glad he was able to. It seems like he was able to turn the corner at least. So
yeah. So I absolutely love the first film. I feel like they get progressively worse. 1, 2, 3. I think the first one is amazing. I really love watching it. I love the story behind it. How do you feel, Yotter?
It's still probably one of my top 5 favorite comic book movies of all time.
Sure.
Like it's such a good adaptation of those first 11 or 12 issues. You know, they took out some of the space stuff and they took out, Baxter Stockman and the Mousers and stuff. But
sure.
I mean, even to the point of having Shredder fall off the building at the end and that big like climactic battle going up to Northampton to kind of recuperate. That's in the comics. Like when Casey Jones and Raphael meet in the park, that's in the Raphael one shot.
Nice.
So they did a really good job of adapting that. I think it still looks good with all the practical effects.
Sure.
Like you said, it has that great balance of like, darkness and comedy. I love Elias Koteas to this day when he pops up in something. Like I'll look for his name, like knowing. I went into The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. So like a 3-hour movie.
Sure.
I went to see Elias Koteas. He's in the first 30 seconds and immediately dies. And I'm like, what? I have 3 more hours of this goddamn movie.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, no, I absolutely love that movie. It's my when I'm feeling under the weather or feeling a little depressed, that's what I'll put on and it'll turn my day around.
That's awesome. Mayor, what are your thoughts on the first movie?
It's enjoyable. I remember seeing it in the theater when it first came out. I actually was down in Florida for spring break that year
nice.
With my grandparents, and they gave us me and my brother Michael, a little bit of money, and we would walk to, there was a shopping mall within walking distance, and they had a movie theater. It's where I saw Hunt for Red October and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
It was kind of, it's one of those things that's kind of like always in my brain. I had a poster for years of Leonardo
when he's doing his meditation by himself outside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's it was a poster of him, but it was like a full body shot of him, just like kind of looking at the camera. And he didn't have like he didn't have a meditative look. He literally had like a little bit of a smirk on his face, and it was just and you know, me being the Leo fan that I was, like, that's the one that I wanted, that poster on my wall.
Nice.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
That is awesome. So the same year, later in the year, beginning on August 17th, at the Radio City Music Hall, Pizza Hut sponsored the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Coming Out of Their Shells tour. I never saw it live. I saw the VHS tape of it years later. It was not something I was introduced to in the youth. So by the time that I watched it, I was very much like, this is not enjoyable at all.
Yeah.
I saw it when it first hit VHS.
Did
I never saw it live. And yeah, the moment I turned it on, I was I felt like it. I felt how everybody must have felt when the Star Wars holiday special.
Yeah, it's our generation's holiday special.
There you go.
Literally, like, everybody was probably been like, "Yeah, baby, this is Star Wars. It's on TV."
Mm-hmm.
That playing the electric keyboards and dancing.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was literally like they tried to go like Bill and Ted with it.
Yeah,
really, but it was worse than Bill and Ted, man. Like,
no, but I just mean with like the music. Instead of using our weapons, we're going to use music to save people and save the world and beat Shredder with music and
it was showbiz with the turtles. That's what that was.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
It was bad.
Yeah, I still have that VHS.
Do you really?
I sure do.
I rented it from Marsh because we were
Nice.
living near a marsh at that point in my life. And that's where we rented all of our videos from on the weekends. And like I said, it was probably 2 or 3 years it probably was like 92, 93 before I was actually like, oh, this is what I want to rent tonight. And it did not go well. I was like, oh.
I still remember sitting in the the waiting area at Pizza Hut, waiting to be seated, begging my parents for the cassette. I listened to it on repeat, even though at the age of 6, I knew it was garbage. I still listen to it on repeat. Splinter has this stupid song about skipping stones. Like, I don't know what the hell is going on in this thing. But...
Well, in my research of it, in my research of it, they also did a pay-per-view event of the concert for people who it didn't come to their city. And does your VHS tape? This says the VHS tape had a making of documentary on it also.
I mean, it might. I haven't watched it in 25 years, probably, but I do.
What is this called again? It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What?
Coming out of our shells.
Shells.
I will say, in that documentary we were talking about earlier, Michael Ian Black is in it, and he tells a really good story about this.
Oh, yes.
He
was one of the promotional guys.
Yeah, he would go town to town like a week ahead of the show, dressed up as one of the turtles, and like it was, I guess, right as it was like blowing up and everything. And I don't remember the story exactly, but I remember it being just really interesting. Like basically, it was all the kids that couldn't. Yep, that's it. It was basically like all the kids who couldn't afford to go to the show would go to see Michael Ian Black dressed up as an turtle,
and like a pizza, like it was at Pizza Huts or something, like or record stores and Pizza Huts. Like he would go to a bunch of different places to like promote it before the actual day it came to town. So is that the full thing on YouTube?
Oh no! That was just the song "Pizza Power." I didn't know April O'Neil had her own power ballad.
Well, yeah, she had to sing too.
Oh man, it looked. Shane,
I remember it all sounded like really shitty Van Halen. Like,
it looks like the entire thing is on there. It's an hour and 34 minutes on YouTube.
There you go, Shane. I'm
gonna have to go, dude. It's been 30 years since I've watched it. I'm gonna have to go back and check it out again.
They have the making of the Coming Out of Our Shell tour. That's 30 minutes long.
I will watch that.
We need, when you post this please post the honest trailer for this.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
They made an honest trailer for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles out of their shell.
Yeah. Cool. I will definitely have to remember to look that up and to post it.
Oh.
All right. So then that was also in 1990. That was in August through the rest of 1990 and part of 91. In 91, we very quickly got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. There was apparently a lot of blowback from parents because the film, which had the dark, grittier side of the comic books, parents weren't expecting that after watching their kids watch the animated series. So starting with Ninja Turtles 2 and following into Ninja Turtles 3, they were no longer allowed to use their weapons anymore. If you remember the opening scene of Turtles 2, they fight in a deli or a food shop of some kind.
Market.
Yeah.
It's like a little like
bodega
area. Yeah.
And they're fighting with sausages and hockey equipment and it's pretty bad and pretty terrible. However,
there's a very clear shot where they're all in a net dangling like over the ground, and they're just like pulling at the ropes of the net. Like, how are we going to get out? And like Leo's sword is just like right behind him, but he's not pulling it out to just cut the ropes and let him free. Like,
dude, I never noticed this at all until Yotter and I were talking at work one night, and he was like, "That's the reason why they don't use their sword. Like, none of them use their weapons in the second movie." And I was like, it was that glass shattering moment. I was just like, oh my God, I never like noticed it. Cause I was we were 10, 12 when this movie came out.
11.
11. Yeah.
And then in the cartoon, Michelangelo doesn't use his nunchuck after I think season 2, maybe season 1 even, because they were illegal in
the United Kingdom,
the UK. Yeah.
Yep.
And so he just had like this grappling hook thing that he used. His nunchucks were still there, but he didn't use them.
Ninja was also a bad word in the United Kingdom at that point, so they are the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. Yeah, that's there's
is there real foot in like the UK at this point? Is that why like
they were in Parliament? They were able to really stop all of this from going through.
Well, one of the other animated shows we'll get to later, they went full into like the European. They changed a lot of the weapons that the Turtles used in one of the animated shows because they didn't want to have to deal with it for European censorship. But yeah, we'll get there eventually. Apparently, Kevin Eastman was both Eastman and Laird were completely against Bebop and Rocksteady showing up in this movie. I don't know whether issue or deal. Go ahead.
But it's not Bebop and Rocksteady.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, they originally wanted Bebop and Rocksteady in this movie, but Eastman and Laird said, no, we don't want them to be involved, and that's how we got Toka and Reza.
Can I ask, Brandon, do you know why they were against it?
I think the whole time with the movies, they were hoping for them to be more like the comics.
Okay.
And so I think everything that they would push for would be more towards what, they had more creative control over and like what their original vision was.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of what I always took from that.
Jim Henson, his company again did the suits for this movie. However, Jim Henson actually passed away between the two films. But apparently they just still ended up working with Jim Henson's company for this one.
So this movie's dedicated to Jim Henson. It was the first Henson Company movie to come out after his death. And for both of the movies, it was his son that was really championing it. Like,
oh, cool.
Jim had no interest in doing it, but I can't remember what his son's name is. It's another J name.
Yeah.
John Henson, maybe.
Opening weekend, Friday night. Saw it like 7:30 showing or something. Eastgate Cinema. Cinema
Eastgate.
4 at Eastgate.
Nice.
So
that would have been a lot of fun.
There was nobody there.
Oh, that wasn't as much fun.
Empty.
Really?
Yeah, at that theater on a Friday night. Yeah, that I got nothing for you. I can tell you. I know for a fact I was there on opening night, and we weren't like the only ones in there, but it was bare. So,
I remember going the night before Easter, and up in Warsaw where I grew up, and it was pretty packed.
Nice. How did the ninja rap sequence play out with a full audience?
I mean, Vanilla Ice was pretty big back then. I think they were pretty okay with it.
Yeah. Probably one of the highlights of this movie. I did like Vanilla Ice back in the day, so David I was Warner's happy to see him in it. What's that?
David Warner's pretty badass.
Yeah, for sure.
I like David Warner.
Yep. Yotter, I assume you're going to know this. Jason, do you know who did the voice for Toka and Reza? Very huge cartoon voice actor.
Was it Peter Cullen?
The other one.
Oh, go ahead. Say it.
Frank Welker.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, Frank Welker did the voice of Toka and Reza, which they didn't really have a whole lot of lines, and it was a lot of like childish mumbling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's weird.
But yeah, they brought in Frank Welker to do those.
You'd hire somebody that's that big of a name just so that they could.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I know they got Kevin Nash for Super Shredder because they just needed like a big guy. Yep. So they like, who's the biggest wrestler we can put in a suit?
Yeah. Which when I watched it 2 or 3 days ago, when I watched 2 and 3 in the same day, it's just the entire third act is so bizarre with when Shredder takes the mutagen and turns into Super Shredder. It doesn't really make a lot of sense why mutagen would make all of his like spikes and armor and everything grow also and make them huge and whatnot. And then he essentially like watching it this time, I really had a very Lethal Weapon feeling because they're like under like a wooden bridge and he's just like knocking shit out of his way to like bring it down on himself. Like I thought it was a very just like ridiculous like death to Shredder. Like it was. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I kind of like the movie just because it has like a place for me. Like I was 6 when it came out, whatever. But like, it's almost like Terminator 2. The more I watch it as an adult, the less I like it. Like the more childish I find it and the less I like it.
Oh man, I still feel like Terminator 2 holds up for me.
See, I don't know. Whenever I watch Terminator 2, I get hung up on the like him teaching the Terminator how to be cool and give a thumbs up and
okay.
And all
I can see that.
I don't know. I get caught up on that kind of PG-13 aspect of it when the first movie is like a hard R, almost horror movie.
Sure.
And so that's kind of how I feel with this series too. Like it takes that comedic kid turn that I liked as a kid, but now I'm kind of over.
Sure. In 1991, we also got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, The Manhattan Project on the NES system. I don't have it in my possession, so I don't think I've ever played it. Yotter, you're shaking your head. Do you remember this game?
Yeah, this was my favorite as a kid. It was
really?
It was the next evolution from 2. Okay. The graphics were a little better, the controls were a little better. And it was maybe the last year of NES. So it really pushes the graphics like as far as they were going to go. And I just remember going to Video World was the video store in Warsaw, and I probably rented it so many times I should have just bought it. Kind of a thing. But yeah, I remember like sitting around eating Halloween candy and playing the crap out of that game.
Nice. I don't actually remember owning it, but the plot of it, where it starts out in Florida, like with the turtles on the beach, I do remember that, and I remember the floating island of Manhattan. So I remember elements from the storyline, but I don't ever actually remember playing it. But I mean, I obviously had to have played it at some point. But I definitely remember a lot of the story beats. Mayor, do you have any memory of this game?
I'm right there with you. I don't remember playing it, but I do remember aspects of it.
Okay.
And I remember playing 2 and 4 a whole lot more than I ever played 1 or 3.
For sure.
So.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to 4. In 91, late 91/92, we got, it was originally called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. It was later rebranded on the SNES, the first Super Nintendo game, which for some reason, instead of just calling it Turtles in Time, they gave it the number 4, which technically, as far as Nintendo games go, it was the 4th one, but you could have started over renumbering with the SNES like games. But for whatever reason, they didn't. This game, Turtles in Time, was voted number 1. I put up a community poll about what your favorite or like the Ninja Turtles game you remember the most playing. This one blew every other Ninja Turtles game out of the water. It had 4 times as many votes as what came in second place. It was far ahead of everything else. Again, this was one when in the arcade it had the 4 different stations to determine which turtle you were based on, where you were standing and putting your money in. It jumped to a 2-player version when it was on the Super Nintendo because it only had 2 controllers. Krang shows up, Shredder shows up and kidnaps April. Krang shows up and steals the Statue of Liberty. And then I don't remember what machine Shredder had, but he had the ability to send you back to the dinosaur era and then various other levels and whatnot. Yotter, do you remember better in detail why you were shifting around in time?
No, I remember it's the 3rd level you're fighting Shredder inside the Technodrome, and then he kicks you into the portal. And I don't know why the portal freaks out and sends you through time instead of through dimensions.
Yeah.
But then you're playing your way through time, and whenever you get to the end and beat a boss, you're teleported to the next level.
Yep. I remember that.
It was just hilarious because this game literally gets this is the basis for X-Men.
Oh, sure. The 4-player X-Men game. Yeah.
Literally the exact same game.
Yeah.
X-Men, Avengers did this. They did an Avengers game with it. Nice. Which I want to say all of them went from being in a laboratory kind of thing to being into a jungle theme.
Yeah.
Going into another a rock
prehistoric theme. Yeah.
And so it was just this, all of the games that they released that are all side scrollers probably are the exact same template, and they just literally slapped something on it.
Probably.
That makes a lot of sense.
So
it's a great game. I remember
X-Men and Turtles in Time are the ones that I enjoyed playing the most. But
sure. Yeah.
I remember in college we would do speed runs.
Oh, nice.
Half an hour was the goal. If you could beat the whole game under half an hour.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah, I don't remember doing any speedruns or whatnot, but I definitely remember playing the game. I remember playing it a lot in the arcade downtown at Union Station when it was still open. I remember playing this game a lot there. 1993, we get the release of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, which apparently sometimes is subtitled Turtles in Time. I always thought that was the title of the movie, but apparently it's not really the title of the movie.
Yeah, I think it was one DVD release in the aughts that called it that.
Really? Yeah. So they brought Elias Koteas back as Casey Jones for this movie, but he also, because it involves time travel back to the 1600s, he plays a character in the 1600s. And when I watched this the other day, it made me wonder if he actually had the long hair from the first movie and filmed all of his Casey Jones stuff. He didn't. He had the shaved head. And he wore a wig. Okay.
That's a wig for sure.
That's a wig. Okay. I was watching the movie trying to figure out if it was an actual wig or if he actually had the shaved head. Because when they travel back in time and he plays the character that April thinks is Casey or whatnot, he has the shaved head. And I was I can't tell if it's a wig. It's a good wig then because it looks like his hair from the first movie.
It's not bad, but the movie that he did in between, Cyborg 2 with Angelina Jolie, he had short hair.
Okay.
And then he did The Prophecy after this one with Christopher Walken, and he had short hair in that as well.
Okay. So. That has to be a wig then. Yeah. I love the fact that you name dropped Angelina Jolie in this episode. I always support that. She's beautiful.
Hey, so side note, weird thing. Cyborg was supposed to be the sequel to Masters of the Universe. The first Cyborg was written as a sequel to Masters of the Universe.
Really?
Yep.
And then I'm gonna have to rewatch Cyborg now and see how well that plays.
Yeah, they totally scrap it and they rebrand it and everything else. But yeah, the original script was a sequel to Masters of the Universe.
Wow.
Most interesting.
No idea.
Paige Tirico is back for a second time as April. She was fine as April.
Woman smoking hot back.
Yeah.
She and don't get me like the original April O'Neil. She's cute.
Judith Hogue.
But yeah, the girl from the second and the third one, she's smoking hot.
Yeah, I always agreed with you. I find Judith Hogue a lot more attractive now as an adult.
Sure.
Than I did when I was younger. I thought Paige was more attractive for sure. But
Brandon, I am pretty sure that you and I were together in the office the day that I learned Judith Hogue's role in Armageddon.
Oh yeah.
I don't know
how you didn't know that.
I had no idea, and I don't know what I was reading, but I was reading something, and it said Judith Hogue, parentheses, Armageddon. And I'm like, what? Where was she in Armageddon? Like, why are they saying Judith Hogue, parentheses, Ninja Turtles? So, like, got on IMDb, looked up Judith Hogue's character. As soon as I saw her character's name, I went, oh my god, is that Will Patton's wife? So, because I own Armageddon digitally, I pulled up the movie on my phone, fast-forwarded to the scene where, like, he takes the spaceship tour, and when she walks out the front door, in the office with Brandon, I had this, like, glass-shattering moment of how did I never know that was April O'Neil?
One of your favorite Michael Bay movies of all time.
Yeah. I had no idea. I've watched that movie 2,000 times and never put together that was Judith Hogue that played Will Patton's ex-wife. Like, it was just mind-blowing to me. It made me happy. I'm glad she got work after Ninja Turtles, because...
I have a couple of quick stories about her.
Yeah, go for it.
She's a sweetheart. I met her at a con. She signed my poster. Nice. She gave me all of her love. It's right there. All of
her love.
I apologize to any of her. Yeah, like, I don't know if she was ever married or anything, but I have all of her love now, so I'm sorry.
It's on the poster forever.
But the only other things I know her from, she was in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. She had a little cameo as a doctor.
Okay.
And she had been on a soap opera before Ninja Turtles, because that's why my mom agreed to take me to the first movie.
No way.
She's like, oh, I know that woman from the soap opera that I watch. We can go watch this movie.
And you don't know what soap opera it was?
I don't remember.
All right.
Yeah. Probably Duel.
Days of our lives.
And the reason she didn't come back for 2 and 3 was because they cut out a lot of her character moments from the first movie.
Really?
So she really loved doing it, but when she saw the final product, she liked the movie, but a lot of what she put into it kind of got lost. And
oh, that's crazy. Do you know? Is there anywhere to find, like, not necessarily deleted scenes, but does she talk about any of the stuff that got cut out, like, on any documentaries or anything?
Not really that I know of. I know some of the European releases have some deleted scenes in them.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know exactly what all was lost. I think there was a lot at the farmhouse that got lost.
So there's 2 different shows that she was a part of for multiple episodes.
Okay.
Oh, she was in Halloween Town too. Those they were
like the Christopher Lloyd, like, Nickelodeon movie or whatever, or Disney movie or whatever.
Yeah, I think there were Disney Channel movies. Okay. Halloween Town. Yeah, she was in.
Wasn't Christopher Lloyd the bad guy in that or something?
I have no idea.
I have no idea either.
So right before Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, there was a show called Wolfe.
There was no Wolfe.
No.
Tony Wolfe, a San Francisco cop, is framed on a drug charge by the criminals he's been pursuing. So that happened right before.
Oh, she was in Cadillac Man.
I was going to say she's in Cadillac Man. And then she was also in a TV show called Loving, which looks like it is probably your daytime soap opera.
Yeah. Okay.
And nice. Loving takes place in the fictional town of Corinth, Pennsylvania, centering around the lives of the wealthy Alden family. So yeah, that definitely sounds like something.
So another Judith Hogue story. Yeah. She got the role of April while she was working on Cadillac Man. Like, while they were on set, her agent called her. And Robin Williams was a huge comic book fan. And he loved Ninja Turtles, like, especially those early Mirage things. And so literally, like, she told him while they were on set one day, and instead of, like, working on lines in between takes, he was breaking down the character and giving her notes and, like, you should do this in the movie, like this. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He was in Quantum Leap for an episode.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
She was in Roseanne for an episode. She was on Melrose Place for 2 episodes.
Oh, it can't be in the first season because I finished the first season. I didn't see her.
Well, you've been watching Armageddon for 2 decades, and you didn't. So.
Good point. The Quantum Leap episode, I vaguely... So last year, no, like 2 years ago, right before Hulu lost Quantum Leap, like I'd made it through like 4 of the 6 seasons of Quantum Leap, and then all of a sudden, like I got a notification from Hulu that was like, Quantum Leap is about to go off our stuff at the end of this month. You should finish it. So I had to go through like 56 episodes in 2 weeks. And like that's literally all I did when I was at home was just watch Quantum Leap so I could finish the whole show. Because it was one of those shows that like I watched when I was a kid, but never like MacGyver when I was a kid. I never really watched it in order. I just watched it whenever it was on. So 10 years ago I went and watched MacGyver all in order. A couple of years ago I decided to watch Quantum Leap in order. I remember looking her up on the episode she was on because I was like, this lady looks familiar to me. Obviously more familiar than she did in Armageddon because I didn't recognize her there. But I remember looking her up and going, oh, that's Judith Hoag. Like, as soon as I saw her name, obviously I knew who it was, which is really cool.
You had probably learned your lesson from Armageddon. This was probably after.
I think it was after Armageddon, yeah.
Dude, it's crazy. Like, I'm looking at this list, right? And she was on Soldier of Fortune. She was on Providence, Chicago Hope, X-Files, Touched by an Angel, The Pretender, Judging Amy, Boston.
I love The Pretender.
6 Feet Under, ER, Without a Trace, Crossing Jordan, Carnival.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. She was
ESI, Seventh Heaven, NYPD Blue, JAG, Close to Home, Commander-in-Chief, Bones, Still Standing. Like, I'm looking at this and I'm like, she hasn't stopped working.
Yeah, she hasn't. She's done a lot of stuff I never realized.
Gets 1 episode.
Sure.
Every single thing she's doing, but she's working a ton.
That's still a decent paycheck.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome. Good for her.
So she's a sweetheart. If you ever see her at a con, go talk to her.
I definitely will.
She'll spend all the time that you want talking to you.
That's
but awesome. I can't get any of her love because you've
got all of her love. So the third film became a time travel movie. They go back to the 1600s, feudal Japan.
Shane does not love this movie.
I don't love this movie. I literally watched it like 2 days ago, and it was rough to watch.
Very silly.
It's silly and ridiculous, but it's like at the same time, like, oh, we have this scepter that can transport people, but only if they're the exact same weight as the person who's holding it at the exact same moment in time. And I'm like,
equal mass displacement.
But it doesn't even make sense. Like these turtles,
a really good Donatello.
Thank you.
If you take the weight of these turtles being 6 feet tall turtles, they've got to weigh like 400 pounds. How are they trading places with like 150 pound dude? Like it's just
No, I agree. It's ridiculous. I didn't even like it as a kid.
Yeah, like, I didn't either.
When I was 8 watching it, I was like, this is a little much, guys.
Yeah. But it kind of does a Seven Samurai type thing. Like you've got this group of people that need protection, so the turtles become their protectors. But then, like, Elias Koteas' 1600 version betrays them and like kidnaps the girl they're supposed to be protecting, and it's just like it's all just dumb. And you've got a really good British actor who's done a lot of like small stuff. Like when I was watching the movie and I looked him up, I'm like, this guy's so familiar to me. I looked him up and I'm like, he's familiar, but in like all these really small bit villain parts that he's done. Like not anything big or huge or famous to mention that he's done. But it's like even he was wasted. Like why'd you bring this guy in as your villain? Like, and it's a terrible villain on top of that. And it starts just throwing like the Romeo and Juliet storyline where like the son is in love with the woman who's like opposing his father. And it's just like they tried to do way too much with this movie.
Yeah. It's a weird over the top, like every character is a cartoon character, like just ridiculous. But I appreciate what the director was trying to do. Like you said, it kind of has a Seven Samurai thing, and he really leaned into that. Like, there were a lot of shots that are like straight out of a Kurosawa movie. So now that I'm older and I've gotten into Kurosawa and some of the Japanese cinema a little more, I kind of see what he was trying to do. And the stuff that he and his cinematographer did away from the script is actually really good. Like, I think there's a place for it for me now. I appreciate it more now than I did as a kid.
Interesting.
The other thing I noticed, we watched it on an employee movie night a couple years ago, and most of the time when the turtles are talking, they're off screen. So that tells me they were having a huge problem with the animatronics.
I will definitely agree with that, because there's a scene in the last third of the movie where the four turtles are together and they are actually talking, and I literally rewound it and played it again because their mouths are not moving with what they're saying, and I was just like, is this like a bad sync up on like the I own it on iTunes. Rewound it, played it again, and I'm like, no, their mouths are just moving, not along to their talking at all.
I'm sure, like what you said earlier, Jim Henson's company didn't do this one.
Sure, it was.
So it was some.
It was. Where did it go? Oh, I thought I had written down the name of this company, but I did not. But yeah, Jim Henson's company did not come back.
Yeah, so I'm sure it was just exactly. Yeah, it was probably a second-rate company that would do it cheaper, and and that was the final product. It kind of shows.
So as we wrap up the original trilogy movies, Jason, have any of your kids watched any of them?
They've watched the first one, and they like it a lot. Nice. I bought the other two. I bought all three of them digitally. Mm-hmm. I just haven't gotten into 2 or 3 yet. But yeah, Chris is the one who's definitely his turtles are, out of all the kids, he's probably the one who likes them the most.
Nice.
And so, but he really enjoyed watching the first one. So.
All right. The next topic that we're moving on to is one that I don't have any experience with. I've seen clips of it, but I never watched the show, so I don't have any reason to hate Venus de Milo. But it's the 23-episode Fox series that they did called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation, which introduced a female Ninja Turtle for the first time ever.
I was not a fan of the style, so I never watched it.
Yeah.
It was very weird. I remember, I know I've seen bits and pieces of it, when it was airing, I would watch it here and there, but not ever caring about it. Leonardo only had one sword in this version. Donatello's bow staff was a metal staff instead of a wooden one. Raphael's size would combine into some type of larger bow type sword weapon. And then this was one of the times that they completely removed nunchucks so that they didn't have to deal with international international issues or anything. And they gave Mikey the tonfas, the police batons, essentially.
Oh yeah, like Nightwing.
Like Nightwing's police batons. They gave him those since they were actually they're the main weapon of police in Europe for the most part. So yeah, just a lot of weird differences. And again, I've never watched it enough to really hate Venus de Milo, but I've seen enough clips on YouTube and other places that have referenced her that she doesn't look like a great character.
Yeah, the only thing I really remember about Venus was that she was from a Chinese culture, whereas the turtles were from Japanese.
Yep.
So it just introduced some different fighting styles, as well as more of a mystical turn. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was never a big Power Rangers fan. And so when the cartoon stopped and they started this,
yep. This was Saban Entertainment.
I watched them, but yeah,
right? Yeah,
I watched them, but it didn't really grab me. And it was kind of
there
was a lull in my fandom, and it was kind of from here to 2002 probably.
Sure. The director of the 2007 CGI film has said that when he had meetings with Peter Laird flat out told him that he was never allowed to use Venus de Milo in the TMNT movie. Apparently Peter Laird has a undying hatred for that character.
Yeah. I know Peter was super against it, and Kevin at the time was he had already moved on to other things, and so he's like, whatever, it's our cash cow, whatever gets us more money. Let's just do it.
I totally forgot that this was the live action version.
Oh yeah, live action, yeah.
No, yeah. I thought it was the cartoon, which is why I said this time. I forgot this even existed, man.
Yeah. The one thing I will say about this, the first, I think 5 episodes, maybe 6 episodes, tell one big story, and it was a scrapped 4th movie about the return of Shredder.
Oh, cool.
He's like this homeless guy with no memory or something, and
interesting.
So it in a weird way, it ties into the movies, even though it was advertised as a continuation of the cartoon. Like,
right.
I don't know. It was all kind of a mess.
Well, and like we mentioned a few minutes ago, this was when Saban Films owned the rights to the Ninja Turtles, which they're most famous for doing the Power Rangers stuff. And they actually had this show cross over with an episode of the Power Rangers called Power Rangers in Space. Oh, I'm sorry. The TV show at the time was called Power Rangers in Space. They crossed over. The episode was titled Shell Shocked, where one of their villains came to Earth and brainwashed the Ninja Turtles to be the bad guys of the episode. So they fight the Power Rangers, but then through fighting the Power Rangers, they get broken of their spell, and then the Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles work together to stop this villain.
You love these simple plots.
Like Batman versus Superman.
Essentially, yeah. I'd be interested in watching that episode at least, because like I said, I know I've seen random stuff from this show, but I would be interested in watching that episode if I could find it, just to kind of see how cheesy the two of them are together.
I watched through them in like 2012, 2013. I think they're still on like Netflix or something too.
Oh,
but like,
okay. I'll have to look into that.
They're tough to get through.
Are they?
Yeah. You can watch those first like 5 or 6 episodes just to kind of see what that 4th movie would have been.
That would have been cool.
Check out the Power Rangers episodes, and that's about it.
Right on. The next show was in 2003. It went back to animation. It was done by... This is the one you were thinking of? This is 4Kids Animation, which was on Fox's, at the time called Fox Box, which was like their kids' channel or whatever. It lasted 156 episodes. I remember being excited about this show, and then watching the first couple of episodes and just losing all interest in it. So out of the 156, I may have watched 3 or 4 of them. I wasn't really a huge fan of the animation style that they went with on this one. I liked the fact that they tried to go towards a more adult audience, but again, I didn't like the way it looked, and that was a big thing for me with the Ninja Turtles. Yeah. What are your feelings on it?
That's fair. They're definitely like bigger and muscular. I do like the series. It was one that Peter Laird was quarterbacking. This was after he had like sold off either the creative rights or rights altogether. He'd bought them from Eastman, so he was kind of the sole creative force. And so this show does have the benefit of one of the original creators trying to adapt his comic run, his Mirage comic run, as a show and telling a longer story, so they don't kill Shredder off in the first issue or the first episode. But it does.
Let's address that real quick. There's 2 big things that are involved with the Shredder in this television series. Number one, you end up finding out the Shredder is actually an alien life force called Churrell.
Yep. He's a neutron, which we had talked about earlier as like what Krang was based off of.
Exactly. And then it also introduced the first female Shredder, Karai, who become, in some versions, she's Shredder's biological daughter. I don't think that's the case in this one since he's an alien life form, but she's actually a character that I hadn't ever realized how many different iterations of her I'd seen throughout the years until I started doing the research for this episode. But she's a character that's pretty much around a lot after this animated series.
Yeah, she was in the Mirage series too. She pops up during that City of War arc. That when Eastman and Laird came back together.
Oh, cool. So she was actually a comic character first before this.
Yeah.
Nice. I didn't realize that.
But yeah, I would recommend the show. I like that it tells one big story, so it's not each episode isn't a one-off. They stay a little truer.
The show also introduced the Purple Dragons. Were they from the comics also, or was that something new for the show?
So they're kind of like the local gang. don't remember in the Mirage series if they had that name or not, but there definitely was the gang.
Like a local gang. Okay, cool. Jason, have you or your kids or anything watched this version? No? Okay.
If you have Paramount Plus, they put all 7 seasons on Paramount Plus.
So, cool.
It's worth checking out. The first couple episodes, I mean, obviously they're kind of finding their footing and stuff, but they do a really good job of slowly introducing Shredder. And
in my research, having not watched the show yet, I do find it interesting that there's a character named John Bishop of the Earth Protection Force, who is a time-traveling space agent type character. I have no idea if he looks like Bishop from the Marvel Comics series, but just the fact that they named this guy Bishop, who's like a time-traveling Earth protection guy, I was just like, wonder where they got that name from.
He looks more like Neo.
Okay, all right, cool.
But he's a pretty solid character. He's a good bad guy to introduce when Shredder leaves.
The next iteration that we got was 4 years after that comic started. It was our next film that we got, the 4th Ninja Turtles film, an all-animated film. And as Jason is saying, like, I love this movie. Yeah. I next to the first original film, this is probably my second favorite Ninja Turtle movie. It was the all CGI one that was billed as TMNT. I enjoyed. I actually just watched it literally right before we started this episode. I enjoy Sir Patrick Stewart as the bad guy. Mm-hmm. I enjoy hearing Sarah Michelle Gellar's voice as April O'Neil. I really love Freddie Prinze Jr. in all things he does. He's Casey Jones in this one. As a Raphael fan, I enjoy. What's up?
I thought Chris Evans was Casey Jones.
Oh yeah, I apologize. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, crap, you're right. Yeah, Chris Evans. Totally apologize. You're right. I love Freddie Prinze Jr. I wished he was Casey Jones in this.
If only.
If only. My fault. But yeah, so totally got that wrong. But I love, as a Raphael fan, I love him as the Night Watcher in the metal suit. Probably my absolute favorite scene of any Ninja Turtles movie or anything I've ever seen of the Ninja Turtles is Leo and the Night Watcher fighting in the rain on the rooftop.
The CGI in that is so pretty.
It is perfect. The background is perfect. The foreground, the fight, the rain on them while they're fighting.
The water hitting them like with little drops.
Yes, I feel like it is so like watching it tonight. I was literally like sitting on the edge of my seat enjoying the fight between the two of them because like they have the fight as the Night Watcher, and then they have a couple of lines of dialogue when he realizes it's Raphael, and then they just go back to fighting again. Yeah. And it's just so beautiful to watch.
There's a scene later too where it's like the start of the third act when they're basically attacking the big building, like they're trying to infiltrate it.
Yep.
And they're in this courtyard, and there are trees in the background that are like swaying in the wind. And I remember the first time I went to see it in the theater, like I got lost watching the CGI of each individual leaf. Like it was so detailed and pretty that I like lost track of the battle.
Sure, and a lot of the cool like rooftop scenes, like aside from the fight scene I'm talking about, like a lot of the times when they're on the roofs, the animation does a great depth of field job where like you've got some skyscrapers here that are quasi in focus, but then you've got another level of skyscrapers that are far more out of focus. Then you've got even farther skyscrapers that are totally out of focus, and it just really just feels like the depth of looking at a New York skyline as it gets more out of focus. This film was really well done in that aspect. Yeah. Mayor, we've talked a lot. Tell me about your feelings on this movie.
No, I mean, I like the fact that this movie doesn't bring in the Shredder at all, or because
they have the Karai. Yeah, Karai is in it, and she's the leader of the Foot.
But the Shredder's not in it, so you're keeping it kind of fresh and new. Like you said, the animation is just gorgeous. Even by today's standards, I still think, and this is 13 years ago. And then, the fact that when they finish the movie and they put their thing up on the mantle, and it's literally, you see that it's a direct continuation of the 3 live action movies. Yep.
Even had the Time Scepter in there.
It's got the Time Scepter. It's got the Shredder helmet from the first movie.
Yep. The mutagen can.
The broken. Yeah, like I just was like, once they showed that, I was like, oh, this is even more perfect.
Yeah. Oh,
like it was like it's an homage, but it's not because it's a direct sequel, and it's just like it's pretty much a perfect. We have this weird faux pas. I feel like it's getting better and better, but in the United States, we have this faux pas where like if it's animated, it's for a kid, and it's like, and it definitely a kid could watch this movie, no doubt, but I definitely feel like this was way more made for our generation. Like of people who were in their mid 20s to late 20s watching this movie.
Well, that's kind of the age of the turtles in it too. I mean, they're past their teenage years at this point. They've kind of separated and they've been doing their own thing, and they got to be brought back together for this, big evil force. And
for sure.
This movie, the movie was very. When it came out and I saw it in the theater, I was like, damn, like this is a movie, like a really movie.
So I'm going to say that the next property we're going to talk about is one I had never seen.
Real quick,
go ahead. Yeah,
I have a fun TMNT story.
Cool, go.
So the director of that movie, this was while Kevin Eastman had nothing to do with the Turtles, no creative control at all.
Okay.
So the director of the movie was working directly with Peter Laird to develop it, but his office in LA was the floor below Kevin Eastman's office. And so he would walk upstairs and talk to his buddy Kevin about what should we do in this movie? And then how can I get our ideas across to Peter? And Kevin was giving him all these ideas about how to handle Peter. Because I guess once Peter has an idea in his head, that's what you have to stick with. And so Kevin taught the director of this movie to be like, you got to make Peter think it's his idea. So go in and plant the seeds and then get Peter to connect those dots and
awesome.
all these little things. And so
and all three of us just had the exact same thought.
Oh yeah. We all had the same thought.
So yeah, Kevin's ideas are all over that movie, even though he had no creative control.
That's crazy.
That's awesome.
The next movie that came out 2 years later is one that I hadn't seen until this week. I paid the $6 to buy it or whatever on Vudu because it sounded good, and it's now my third favorite Ninja Turtle movie I've ever seen. It was a direct-to-video. It was called Turtles Forever. It was a TV film that went to direct-to-video. Have either of you guys seen Turtles Forever?
Yeah, no? It works as the finale for the 2003 series and the 87 series.
It's so awesome. It is Into the Spider-Verse 10 years before Into the Spider-Verse came out. It literally involves the 87 Ninja Turtles coming to the 2003 series. So it starts off with the 2003 animation, but you've got the 87 animation characters in the same space. Throughout the film, they end up getting transdimensionally teleported to the 1987 version of the show. So you've got that animation as the background with the 2003 animated characters also involved. And then in Act 3, you get transported to the original 1984 comic book. And so you've got the original animated Turtles from the comic books with the 87 version, with the 2003 version, all fighting multiple versions of the Shredder. They bring in the 87 Shredder, they bring in the 2003 Shredder. It's so crazy. And you've got the 87 Bebop and Rocksteady, and then you've got the 03 guy that's in charge of the Purple Dragons, and you've got the 87 version of Krang, and then you've got the 03 version of Kari. It brings in all of these villains. It brings in essentially 3 different versions of the Turtles. Then they have a scene where Shredder is literally like, I've looked into the multiverse. And on the screen, you see the 97 live action TV show. You see the 89 movie. You see all the different versions that have ever been of the Ninja Turtles, on this screen behind the Shredder. And it's I'm watching this movie and I'm having so much fun with it because you've got the 87 characters that are all cheesy and goofy. You've got the 03 characters, which I'm not as familiar with, but you pick up on how they are. And then when it gets to the point where it brings in the black and white Ninja Turtles, I'm just It's so much fun and just a bonkers plot on top of that. But man, I really, really enjoyed watching this movie.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. Jason, I think you'd like it. It's really good.
I highly recommend it. It's $6 on Vudu. It's definitely worth it. Like I don't even think you can. Here's my only complaint with the movie. So it's only $6 because you can only buy the standard definition version of it.
Yeah.
So when I'm watching Vudu on my giant TV that I have, because it's the standard def, it automatically has the black bars on the left and the right. But the standard definition automatically has the black bars on the top and the bottom. So it's literally like half the size of what my actual TV could. Like, I thought about trying to see if I could like zoom in or whatever to make it fill the whole screen, but yeah. I never did. But so I watched the entire movie with black bars on the top and bottom of this movie.
I bet it was like that during the 2003 segments because they would mess with the aspect ratio throughout the scene.
Oh, okay.
So like sometimes it'd be like super small aspect ratio and sometimes it'd fill up your whole TV and everything.
Interesting.
And then I bet when they were in the 87 series, it was probably like a full aspect ratio, if I had to guess.
I'll have to check that out.
But yeah,
I'll have to watch it again and see. I don't remember it ever like filling up any more top and bottom than it did, but
yeah.
I was pretty enthralled in it, so I might need to watch it again to tell. But yeah. Jason, I highly recommend it, man. It's so much fun. Like I said, it's Into the Spider-Verse before Into the Spider-Verse did what they did. Like, you get all these different iterations of the Turtles and like them getting along but still fighting, and like this Mikey is hanging out with the other version of Donatello, so it's like fun to see like their interactions. Like, I highly recommend the 2009 Turtles Forever like TV movie. You have to buy it on Vudu. I couldn't find anywhere to stream it, but it's worth $6 of your time.
Now I do have to real quick going back. Which one is the one where like Raphael wears the like bandana? Is that the 2003 series or is that the 2012 series we're about to talk about?
I want to say it's the 2012 series.
I want to say like because like
I can only picture that in like flashbacks when he's like a little turtle. He has the full thing.
Well, they definitely do it in the Michael Bay movie. Like 100%.
Michael Bay movie, and I think Jim Lee's Raphael was like that. So I think that maybe that goes back to the image. But I don't think it's something that lasts like a whole series for any of them.
Yeah, because actually, so I'm thinking that this 2012 version we're about to talk about, that was the one where they like made them very large and blocky, if I remember right. The Nickelodeon version?
No, that was the 03.
Okay.
They were very boxy with a lot of straight lines for the muscles.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's the one I did. Yeah, I didn't care for the animation.
This is the 03. They're more round and
I got you. Okay. Yeah. So the 2012 version
this is the 2012 version.
Right, when the rights were with Nickelodeon, and this was a 3D CGI television show that was aimed at kids that were 6 to 11. But they got a really good voice cast for it. Jason Biggs was Leonardo for seasons 1 and 2, and then he switched over to Seth Green for seasons 3 through 5. Sean Astin was Raphael. They brought in Rob Paulsen, who did the original Donatello in '87. He came back to do Donatello. Nolan North. No,
he did Raphael in the original series, and he did Donatello in the
okay, gotcha. Nolan North, who's done a couple of voices in some of the other. We've kind of skimmed over him. Huge voice actor. He's done stuff in Destiny.
Big in video games. Yeah,
lots of. He was the voice in Uncharted. Yeah. But yeah, for like the last 5 years, he's done a lot of voices in Destiny also. He came in to play Krang. Kelly Hu came in as Kari. And then Corey Feldman, they brought him back to voice Slash. Who I know I had the Slash toy and I couldn't find it. I may have gotten rid of it at some point, but the Slash toy was just ridiculous. Like a very rough, bright green turtle. Very, very weird. Very weird toy. Yeah. So this one's like I said.
Patch.
Go ahead.
Did he have a patch over his eye? Slash.
I think so.
I don't know. He had a black bandana.
Yeah.
I'll have to look this up.
But yeah.
But I vaguely remember one of them having a patch over their eye. But so because this one was aimed more at like younger kids, April O'Neil was a teenager in this version. I know Splinter eventually takes her under his wing and like starts to train her in martial arts also. This also introduced 2 new Shredder sidekicks. I don't know if there was more Bebop and Rocksteady issues, but this time they brought in Dog Pound and Fish Face.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know either of them. Can you elaborate on what they were?
Dog Pound was voiced by what's his name? God, I can picture him, but I can't think of his name right now.
Okay.
He was like he's as a human, he was like a Chuck Norris kind of a guy.
Oh, okay.
And then when he gets mutated into just like a huge hulking dog, basically.
Okay.
And then the Fish Face was kind of like a small, lithe gangster kind of a guy. Like he ran their version of the Purple Dragons, and so he was doing like a lot of kicks and was really light on his feet and stuff. So they had different fighting styles, but they did bring in Bebop and Rocksteady later in the show.
Oh, okay.
So I will say about this version, like it was aimed at kids in that it was on Nickelodeon and it was a little jokier than the 03 version, but it had the benefit of 30 years of history. And so like in almost every episode, there's at least one reference to one of the movies, an old cartoon.
Oh,
okay. There's one stretch during, I think, season 3 or 4, where they do a whole bunch of horror movies. And so they bring in like Bill Moseley for an episode.
Nice.
And they have like a whole like Texas Chainsaw Massacre ripoff and like a whole like Swamp Thing ripoff. And
really?
Okay. So it's a super fun show. And then the last season they did what they called Tales of the TMNT, where the first few seasons told like one big story. And then this last season, they told like a bunch of mini stories. Okay. And they did like a Mad Max Future 3 or 4 episodes. They did something similar to Turtles Forever, where they brought in like different versions of the Turtles and had like a big crossover thing. So it's a really good show. I'd recommend checking it out. Yeah, probably like before the 03 version. But yeah, it's really good.
The Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which we'll get to at some point, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the one that has Raphael, where he's ginormous compared to everybody else, and he's wearing the bandana on his head.
That's the newer version. It's even more like kiddie. I haven't watched that one, but I've read some of the comic tie-ins, and the comics are really funny. So if the show's as good as the comics, I'd give it a shot, but it's not readily available anywhere.
We will get there in a moment. Before we get there, we have to address the Michael Bay version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Have to.
We have to. We can breeze over it pretty quickly. There was a big controversy with this movie. I was very adamantly against this movie because of the controversy, because Michael Bay made comments before, like 2 or 3 years before the movie even came out. Like when they first announced that they were going to be doing it, Michael Bay told everybody that his version of the Ninja Turtles, they were going to be an alien race, that it was going to be a completely different origin story, and the name of the movie was just going to be called Ninja Turtles because they weren't mutants and they weren't teenagers anymore. They were an ancient alien race that was here, and like I went bonkers over this. Like I was not happy with Michael Bay. I don't care how good Armageddon is. Like you can't screw with the Ninja Turtles like this. Like you can't completely change their origin. And then like
how much of that was a smokescreen just to piss off all the fanboys?
I wonder if it was.
My thought was always that he had no idea what the hell he was talking about. And so like the ooze that mutates them often has an alien background. Like it was created by the Utroms or whatever.
Okay.
And so I'm guessing he got like a 2-paragraph background on the Ninja Turtles, and then was like, yeah, we'll make this movie, whatever. And then he was just talking out of his ass and had no idea what the hell he was talking about. That was always my take on that.
I could see that and believe it. Like, I just, so like I said, I definitely bought into the anger and hatred towards Michael Bay when all this stuff was announced. Then they announced that Megan Fox was going to be playing April O'Neil, which made sense because of his connection to her with Transformers.
It's always easy on the eyes.
She is always easy on the eyes, but she is terrible in this movie.
Yeah,
April O'Neil's garbage.
She's hard to buy as April O'Neil. I will give her that she's a huge Ninja Turtle fan, and she lobbied really hard for this part. Whoever she's married to now, I read an interview with her, and she was like, when we've a few months into dating, when I saw that we might have a future together, I made him sit down and watch the entire 87 series with me, because if he didn't like that, then he didn't really like me.
So you're most likely talking about Brian Austin Green, who she was married to for a very long period of time. Just last year, she divorced Brian Austin Green to start dating a musician I like named Machine Gun Kelly. But it has not gone well in the media, their divorce. Brian Austin Green is not very happy about it, but
it probably turned out he was lying about liking the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, of course I love it, honey.
But so
this movie's not as bad as it could have been.
You're right.
Definitely could have been a whole lot worse.
Yeah. I wish they would have gotten a different director, because Jonathan Liebman, who had done Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning, Battle Los Angeles, which I think is one of the worst films I've ever watched.
Oh, that movie's so good.
I am not a fan of it.
I haven't seen it. I can't break the tie.
Bummer. And then Wrath of the Titans, the Clash of the Titans sequel that was also garbage. Like, I just wish they would have gotten a better director for this.
I did like TCM The Beginning, but
I mean, I didn't hate it, but it was also like the 4th or 5th sequel in that franchise. Like,
it was a sequel to the remake that Michael Bay's company did.
Yeah. It was just
yeah.
Wasn't that the one where like you see her give birth at the very beginning?
Meat packing plant? Yeah.
At the meat packing plant while she's working. Dude, I'm not kidding. I'm rock hard when it comes to movies, right? Like, we've watched all the
so we're giving birth in a meatpacking plant.
Sorry, not 6 to midnight rock hard. No, my stomach's rock hard when I can watch movies, and there was something about like the sound effects, the shooting of that opening sequence. I literally so I used to go and like buy a popcorn, and I'd start eating the popcorn while I was watching trailers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I usually would end up finishing my popcorn within like the first 15 minutes of the movie. And so what I would, that was the only movie that's ever done this to me, where I was watching it and the entire opening sequence like made me queasy to the point where I literally just put my popcorn down, and I could like, I had to like, my stomach had to calm down and relax, because it was absolutely fucking disgusting.
Yeah. That was the times though, like those two movies and the Hills Have Eyes remakes, like, it was just, let's gross everybody out like immediately.
Yeah, the gore porn in it. It's just
yeah.
But yeah, that like, yeah, never happened any other movie, but that one I just like, I can't eat this, or I'm gonna hurl all over.
Yeah.
So the Jonathan Liebman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies from 2014 didn't do much for the voice cast. Johnny Knoxville came in as Leonardo. The other
he came in
Turtles,
last minute too. It was like less than a month before the release of the movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, he came in, and then Tony Shalhoub was Splinter. Pretty much all the other voice actors I didn't recognize. Will Arnett and William Fichtner are in the cast. They both do a great job.
Have you ever watched the How It Should Have Ended about this movie?
No.
Oh, dude, it's so good.
Okay.
Yeah, because it literally draws the complete parallel to Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man that had come out like the year before or this same year or whatever. How like the endings of these movies are almost identical.
Interesting. I'd never thought about that.
Yeah, and so watch How It Should Have Ended.
Okay.
It's definitely worth it.
My other minor complaint with the movie is how the origin story had to end up being tied to April O'Neil. How it had to be that these 4 Ninja Turtles were her pets when she was growing up. And like how Splinter happened to be like around when William Fichtner's character betrayed April's dad. Like, I just didn't care for the origin story changes that they went with this script. Like, the rest of the movie is fine. Like, the action sequences are fine. The rooftop scene where they first meet April, I feel, is a little too comedic of what it should be, but it still didn't bother me as much as like the changing of like when she realizes, oh, these are my pet turtles from 20 years ago. Like, I wasn't really a fan of that being a part of this plot.
Do you own these movies at all, Shane?
I don't. No.
I don't either. So.
I had to watch them on one of the streaming services this week. I do not own either one of them. But yeah,
I really just don't like their design and that they're bulletproof.
Sure, and from a visual standpoint, I kind of appreciate the fact that they made them various sizes, and I like the fact that they tried to give them personalities with like, you know, what was on their bodies and their shells. But unfortunately, Donatello is the one that I absolutely hate the most. Like, I hate his like goggles that he wears for half the movie.
Egon.
He's definitely Egon.
Yeah, and Stance has the goggles on his head.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. But I mean, he's totally just. I don't enjoy Donatello the most out of all of them, but like, I mean, I enjoy the fact that Raph is a little bit bigger and like kind of just has like a lot of battle scars all over his face and his body. And I like how Mikey's got like a bunch of like surf type, you know, paraphernalia like dangling from his body and whatnot. And then Leo's got like the traditional like bamboo stuff on his chest and whatnot. Like,
I did kind of like that.
I liked the fact that they try to kind of give them personalities, but like I said, I hated their style for Donatello. Like, I understand they're trying to make him like the techie guy, but you literally like gave him a giant computer backpack and those goggles, and just like the voice just kind of felt wrong to me. Also, like I don't know the guy that did the voice, but
it was the guy who did the mocap.
Oh, was it? Okay, they went like
never brought in a voice
nerdy with his voice. Like, I don't know, wasn't a fan of it. And then it literally leads right into our next one, the 2016 sequel, Out of the Shadow. It was directed by a guy named Dave Green, who literally had one other directing credit to his name, and that's Earth to Echo, which Earth to Echo is a fine movie, but how do you direct that for Disney and then go into a Ninja Turtles movie? And then he literally has not directed another movie since 2016, but is attached to do Coyote versus Acme, which is the upcoming Wile E. Coyote movie, which isn't due out for another 2 years. So, like, how this guy ended up with a Ninja Turtles movie, like, I don't know what he did to Michael Bay to deserve this, because it's not like he worked on another Michael Bay movie that I could find.
Yeah.
The thing I did enjoy with this movie, as bad as the movie is, I was at that point a big Steve Amell fan. I've kind of
me too.
Lost a lot of my Stephen Amell love over the last couple of years. The bad seasons of Arrow, the fact that he wouldn't shake my hand in Chicago kind of just bummed me out. But they brought in Tyler Perry as Baxter Stockman. Brad Garrett did Krang in this movie. Like, go ahead.
I have to go back to it. So poor Shane. Like, so Shane has this VIP pass that allows him to cut the line at Chicago Comic Con.
Yeah.
And it almost looked like Stephen Amell didn't know that he was allowed to cut the line because he had the VIP pass. So like when he walked up, Stephen Amell kind of had this look like, you dick, why did you just cut everybody?
Yeah.
So that happened, and this is a couple of hours before we go to his Knocking Point Windy City
wine tasting event. Yeah.
Wine tasting thing. And and then at one point, I can't even remember how this happened, but our friend Snow walked ahead of us.
Yep.
And he was probably like 30 paces, 40 paces in front of us. and we're following behind him, but Shane and I are just chatting about something, and I think Shane stopped to tie his shoe or something, and that's what ended up causing the drift.
Yep.
And I hung out with Shane while Snow was walking to go get into the mixer. Yeah. And all of a sudden, Snow bumps into Stephen Amell, and he's just like, literally, while Stephen Amell's going to the bathroom, like Snow's like, holy crap. And Stephen just walks up and he's like, hey man, and he shakes his hand, and then he goes right into the bathroom. So, and then like Shane and I are oblivious. We're not paying attention. And we walk up, and Snow didn't move from the point in time that he shook his hand. So like he's just standing there, and he like turns and looks at us, and we're like, what's up, man? He's like, I just shook Stephen Amell's hand. He just went into the bathroom. And we were like, and Shane was like, are you fucking kidding me? You didn't shake my hand when I'm trying to get his autograph. And so then we go through the whole mixer, and Steven's talking about how he I want to say he had just announced that he was going on WWE to do the wrestling thing.
Yeah.
And he had either just shot it or was about to go shoot it, something along those lines. Anyway, so he's in this mixer, and he's telling stories, and he's being a nice guy, charismatic or whatever in the stage in this room. And then we never really get Shane. I swear it's like Shane really wanted to get close to him again to just try and see if he can get shake his hand. But like he was always busy with tons and tons of fans around him.
Sure.
We were keeping our distance or whatever. And then at the end of the party, there was a line to buy merch. And I was like, you know what? I haven't bought anything. Let me get in line. Let me buy a piece of merch. So I'm standing in line, and the point in time that I'm at, or point in the line that I'm at, I'm exactly in the way of like anybody who had to like cut through to go behind the table.
Yeah.
Sell the merch. I'm like blocking their way to get in there essentially because of where I am in line. And like, all of a sudden, Stephen Amell just walks up, and he's like, excuse me, man. And I was like, oh, hey. And I shake his hand.
If I remember right, I think when you first got in line and were farther back in line, I was there with you. And then I decided that I was going to go get alcohol instead of staying in line with you. And then that's when you made your way up and this event happened when I had gone to go get in the alcohol line.
So I shake Stephen Amell's hand. He walks right past me. And then I went, I don't need any merch. So then I walk out, and I come out of the like ballroom that we were in, and I walk out, and Snow and Shane are right there. And I walk up, and I just start laughing, and Shane's like, what? And it was like, I just shook Stephen Amell's hand, and I don't want any merch. And he was like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? And like just started like doing awesome Shane stuff, cursing and stomping about the fact that like everybody that we were with got to meet him and shake hands with him, but he snubbed Shane for that moment. Sorry.
It was the weekend that I paid a bunch of money for that Stephen Amell VIP, and I got all the stuff that I was owed. But when I got my face to face with him, he was not friendly or personable to me. And then both of my friends that I was there with got to shake his hand, and he was uber nice to them.
It sounds like a miscommunication. He didn't understand the VIP thing.
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like. Because, dude, I'm not like everybody had VIP.
Who the hell is this guy?
That's like the year that I went for. I had
you had Nathan Fillion's the year that I had Stephen Amell. Yeah.
VIP.
Yep.
And so like it was just that moment of poor Shane.
Yeah, so I was kind of going down my Stephen Amell high around this time or whatnot. But the one thing I will give this movie, as bad of an actual plot as the movie has, they did Bebop and Rocksteady so perfect.
Oh yeah, they're great. Yeah.
They are the highlight of this movie for me. They looked like their cartoon characters. Even the actors that were playing them before they transformed looked like what I would expect a human version of both of them to look like. Like, I was really happy with the Bebop and Rocksteady, despite how terrible the plot of this movie was.
Yeah, that's fair. I was excited too because I knew the guy who played Bebop from Whose Line Is It Anyway? He'd done a bunch of episodes of that.
Oh,
he's
cool.
pretty funny. Yeah,
I did not know that.
So
Laird, what are your feelings on the sequel, the Out of the Shadows?
I'm right there with you guys. The whole movie's pretty much a big toss, throw it out the window kind of moment.
Yeah.
I felt like Stephen Amell in this movie didn't fit personally.
Okay.
I didn't care for his Casey Jones much.
Yeah.
I felt like anybody could have played that version of Casey Jones is what
Sure.
I guess.
He also seemed like he was in a different movie. Like he interacts with the turtles in like 2 scenes, maybe. Like there's a lot of it where he's just out on his own doing like he's handling Bebop and Rocksteady while the turtles are doing everything else. And
yeah. I do like Bebop and Rocksteady a lot in this.
Yeah.
Megan Fox, always easy on the eyes, as we said. And then the only other thing I remember is I just remember very much feeling like the Casey Jones character, whether it was Stephen Amell or the direction he was given, it did feel out of place and didn't feel like it should have been a part of that movie at all.
I will say one more thing that I like about this movie.
Yep.
I'll admit it. I like Tyler Perry in it. When he's acting,
Baxter Stockman, he's fun.
Yeah.
When he's acting in something that he's not writing or directing, he's great.
Sure.
Dude, he's great in a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah,
and
he's the best part of Gone Girl. He's like the one sane person in that whole movie.
I haven't seen that movie, so but he was really good in the first Star Trek, JJ Star Trek.
Yeah.
Like
that Alex Cross movie I heard was all right.
The Alex Cross movie, he did. I was skeptical yet optimistic and enjoyed his portrayal.
Yeah.
Like I'm obviously a Morgan Freeman diehard Alex Cross lover, but he was fine in that version of Alex Cross.
Yeah. But I loved him in this. He was just 100% going for it, just chewing the scenery all over the place, and
yeah, for sure.
I appreciated it.
The next thing we got to how many years later? We got 2 years. Yeah, 2 years later, we jump to the most recent current iteration of the animated series, which is Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, another Nickelodeon production. My biggest problem that I have with this and why I honestly can't get into the show, and this is going to be super petty what I'm about to say, they made all 4 of the turtles different species of turtles. And to me, you can't be 4 brothers if you're 4 different species of turtles. So I've always grown up that they were all brothers and everything, but in this one, we've got Leo as a red-eared slider turtle, Donnie is a spiny soft-shell turtle, Mikey is an ornate box turtle, and Raphael is a snapping turtle. So, like, again, I understand, like, visually how they're doing it to make sure that all their characters look different, like, sizes and different not animations, but, like, different looks and feels to them, but, like, these guys, my entire life, they've supposedly been brothers in all the other iterations, and, like, I have not been able to get behind this.
It's not like Splinter's really their father, but they call him
Splinter's a movie star in this continuity. He was like a kung fu action star.
My point being, though, it's not like he's actually their dad. So them being adoptive brothers is I can't see that as that big of a deal breaker for me personally. I just the animation style that's super popular right now is just not stuff that I'm into at all.
Totally agree with you on that.
I have problem like Teen Titans Go is like a huge, like my kids were into that for a little while, and I hate that animation.
Yeah.
The manga look is just like where everything looks like babies, like while they're running around. Is just like the Thundercats redo that they did where they looked like the Teen Titan Go characters. Like it's just gross, man. Like it's not something that I find entertaining, and it's kind of like comic books for me, right? Like your writing I would love it if your writing and your art are amazing and are both top notch. Yeah. But if one's not top notch, the other one has to be even better than it was. So like if your writing sucks, then your art has to be amazing. Or vice versa. If your art sucks, then you got to give me great writing. Yeah. And I don't feel but with cartoons, I almost feel like their animation has to be amazing no matter what, or I'm not into it at all. So
that makes sense.
I don't know. Like I said before, I haven't watched it. I've read those comics, and they were entertaining enough that I would check out the series, but I don't have cable, so I don't really have a way to do it.
Sure.
And the price is still pretty high on Vudu, so I haven't bought it yet.
Right on. So since none of us have watched that, we can move on to one of the last topics that I've got for us. I have not seen this. I could not find a cheap enough way to watch it this week that I was willing to pay for it. Batman versus the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Have either of you guys watched it?
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really good. As somebody who grew up watching Batman the Animated Series and the '87 Ninja Turtles, I loved it. I thought it was great. It's worth it just for the fight scenes between Shredder and Batman.
Oh, cool.
There are 2 of them, and they're both awesome.
Reading the synopsis of it and whatnot, it sounds like there's a good like subplot in the middle of the movie where they give mutagen to Joker at Arkham, and then he gives that to all the other inmates. So then they all like mutate into animals and stuff like that. That sounded like it would probably be a pretty enjoyable sequence to watch.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years since I watched it, I think, but that sounds familiar.
Do you own
it? It sounded like there was It sounded like there was a lot of like it did the classic we're both good guys, but it's miscommunicated, so we're fighting for the first like part of the show. Like there's apparently some fights between the Ninja Turtles and the Batman, Robin, and Batgirl before they realize that they're both on the same side trying to fight Shredder and Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah, Batman just assumes it's a new like supervillain group of like mutants, like Killer Croc or somebody like that. And then he realizes that Shredder's the actual like person he needs to be focused on, and
nice.
It is kind of cool to see them kind of pair off, like because it's Batman, Nightwing, Robin, and Batgirl, and so each of the turtles is able to kind of pair off with one of them, and they have some interesting interactions and stuff.
So it's worth at least the rental fee
for sure. There've been a few comic book series where they've crossed over, and so it kind of builds off of those too.
Did you just say it's available on Hoopla?
No. I was asking Yotter if he has it on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
If he does, we should just meet up, and we have an empty auditorium available to us anytime we want.
I'd be into it. I'd watch it again.
Yeah, that could be a lot of fun. I could try to get us another version of the one I was just raving about, Turtles
Forever.
Turtles Forever, yeah. We could just
have that on DVD.
Oh, there we go. We could back to back those.
Yeah,
be a fun Ninja Turtle night.
Yeah.
The last thing just got announced today. It was as if it was serendipitous to bring this up.
That's like your favorite movie.
What's that?
Serendipity is like your favorite movie.
That's Jason's favorite movie.
One of my favorite movies. So
it was announced today that video game producer Dotemu and Tribute Games are redoing-ish. They're making a Ninja Turtles game called Shredder's Revenge, which is apparently a sequel to the second Ninja Turtles game, the arcade game. The stills and screenshots they've released look very much the 4-player side scroller up and side scroller depth of field type thing. It is described as a classically informed side scrolling beat 'em up directly inspired by classic Ninja Turtle games. And like I said, it looks like it's Ninja Turtles 2 again.
Yeah, the trailer looks great. I can't wait. It's by the same people that made the Scott Pilgrim game.
Oh yeah. That was fun. So yeah, that was an awesome rundown all the way up to what got announced today, which I woke up this morning, saw the news, and was extremely happy that we'd have something super relevant to talk about with the Ninja Turtles today. There was a lot of additional side characters, and we'll try to wrap this up since we're like 5 minutes away from 3 hours of Ninja Turtle talk. But Miyamoto Usagi is probably one of the biggest characters that I remember from that 87 animated series. He was the main character from a comic book series called Usagi Yojimbo. I don't know how they got hooked up together to start doing crossovers, but he's been a pretty big character in a lot of different versions of the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, he was in and out of the comics, so I don't know how they hooked up with him, but
Yeah, because it was published by somebody completely different, like under a different like comic banner and everything. Like
Stan Sakai, he's I think he just owns the property. He's always been the guy that's written and drawn it since the early '80s. Yeah.
Do you guys remember Metalhead?
Yeah.
The robot Ninja Turtle. I think Donatello created him.
Yep.
Rat King was one of the bad guys that came and went a lot. Really kind of annoying character, if I remember him right.
Yeah, I remember not liking him as a kid, but I like him now. He has a cool he kind of started off as a Pied Piper kind of a thing, with rats, and it's really cool. He has some good stories with Splinter, where he kind of is able to kind of mind control Splinter and
nice.
Everybody.
Thoughts and feelings on the Neutrino Kids and their story arc?
I don't remember them at all.
Their flying car.
They're from Dimension X. They're like the basically the rebels that are fighting the Rock Soldiers. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. They were a lot of fun. For some reason, I always saw them, and I liked them because I always felt that they were like Back to the Future 2 inspired characters. Like they just kind of had that flying car and the weird sunglasses and like just stuff that I was like, oh, I feel like that would come from Back to the Future 2.
For sure.
And then we've gone over my toys, my comics, my video games. I asked either of you guys if you had any fond turtle stuff from your childhood. Yotter, you've got your poster signed by Judith Hogue.
Yeah.
Do you got anything else?
I do. I have one thing. This is what I would grab if my house was burning down, and I had one thing to grab on my way out the door. This is a first printing of issue 2.
Ooh.
It's from Peter Laird's personal collection. There's a certificate of authenticity back here.
Holy cow.
And it's signed, and there's a little turtle head by both Peter and Kevin.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I assume you got that at a con that they were both at?
So when Peter sold the rights to Nickelodeon, he started selling off a bunch of stuff from his personal collection. So I bought that from him off of eBay.
Oh, cool.
And like I said, it was during the lull when everything was super cheap. So I got a good deal.
Was it already signed, or did you? I know you met them at one of the cons. Did they sign it?
So
at the
Peter
con?
signed it before he sent it. I've never met Peter.
Okay.
But when I was doing cons for our show, Billy and Brandon Watch Movies, Kevin was across the aisle from us at a con, and so we talked to him throughout the weekend, and I had him sign it to kind of match.
That's so awesome.
Yeah,
that was one of the ones that was down in Louisville, right?
No, it was in Indy. It was I think it was the first PopCon.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's very awesome. Mayor, do you got any Ninja Turtles memorabilia from your childhood?
Nothing that I have with me anymore. I do remember having the full set like you did with each of the turtles. I had Splinter with that set. I don't remember having any of the bad guys.
I don't know why I never had Shredder. I don't ever remember having Shredder.
Sorry, I had only Shredder was the only bad guy. I never got Bebop or Rocksteady.
He got Shredder because Shredder was shirtless.
You know it, those nipples.
I'm pretty sure I had the Baxter Stockman when he was the bee or whatever, but
yeah,
I don't think I feel like it was like one that I picked up at probably at the same one where I got the sewer set or whatnot, because it was one that I never really cared about, but I do remember having that toy.
The only other thing that I had was I had a Ninja Turtle blanket, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle blanket, and it was literally like all 4 of the turtles were like standing next to each other holding their weapons, and it was just like a repeated pattern, and they were all probably like, I don't know, like 5-6 inches tall each, and it just said Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles over and over again, and it was like the crappiest blanket of all time. Like it was literally like printed on like the hardest wool or something, and it was like it didn't even keep you warm. It sucked as a blanket, but I was like, I have a blanket. I have a TMNT blanket. Like I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
That's awesome.
But it was a very popular like design at the time for when this was popular. So
very cool. Well, as we didn't go 4 hours, but we sure cracked 3 hours talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So apparently, when we want to do long episodes, we'll just make sure we have Brandon on here so he can give us all the great knowledge and whatnot. It was a great trip down memory lane. Lots of fun childhood memories and video games and comics and stuff got brought up tonight. Jason and I are going to take a couple of weeks off. I'm going out of town for a while. I think Jason's kids have spring break coming up. So just kind of got some busy, hectic schedules coming up with stuff. So we're going to take a couple of weeks off. We're going to come back in April. April's going to be basically our last month of doing kind of just like some random episodes. Starting in May, Jason and I are going to kind of try to take every month and focus on a theme. Like May is going to be our blockbusters month. So we're going to take a look at some franchises that have like been tent poles for summer blockbusters and look at them. July, I know we're doing a month called Juiced Up July where we're going to look at people like Schwarzenegger and Stallone and Van Damme. And hey, there's your blanket. That's cute. Nice.
Very cozy.
But yeah, so we're gonna take a couple weeks off just to like I said, got family stuff going on. I'm gonna be out of town for a week. So we're gonna take a little time off to get prepared for a couple of random episodes in April, and then starting in May, try to do some kind of focused, themed stuff to kind of get us through the fall. In the fall, October is going to be a lot of fun. We're doing the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, the Friday the 13th franchise, the Scream franchise, and the Halloween franchise that month. So every one of those is going to be a lot of fun to look at all those movies. Yotter, I know you and I have had long conversations about the Halloween franchise, so if I'm looking for a 3-hour episode, we'll definitely get you on there with us. But yeah, so gonna kind of take a couple of weeks off just to get everything set up and prepared for what we want to do with the rest of the year. And yeah, so we'll be having some polls coming up on our Facebook website for our random stuff we're gonna do in April. And then yeah, I'm looking forward to the direction we're trying to take the stuff for the rest of the year. Kind of just try to be a little more focused instead of scattered all over the place every month and whatnot. But granted, like I said, these last few episodes have been a lot of fun forcing me to watch specific stuff every week. So I've really enjoyed some of those rabbit holes I've gone down, like this week watching a lot of Ninja Turtle stuff has been a blast. So thank you guys very much for being here with me again this week. Thank you guys very much for listening, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks.